That'd be a little bit difficult to take potentially this morning, knowing that your efforts that are well documented were not even mentioned by the President of the United States here tonight. So a couple of things that are coming up in the course of this. We're continuing to pour through these documents. It's not one whole start to finish, if you will. We're getting some threads of documents, different summaries, but of course it's all the types of things that we'll go over and try to determine here what actually was taken and how serious it could have been.
Tom, thanks. Let me go to our chief White House correspondent, Gettr, and let's just stick on this thread of the China issue because it's very much a live ball for President Trump in the months ahead.
Yeah, I agree. And I was struck as the president laid out what he said was the case against China going. What does he intend to do about it?
Okay, welcome to Investigate Everything. Hopefully you can hear me. I just kind of threw this on. No longer tired. I see you there. Just going to test my sound really quickly. We're going to go back to what I'm watching here because I love watching them break down. So let me just... Okay, everything's good there. Looks like the mic is good, so we are in business. Let's do the automatic adjustment here. All right. Okay, hey, no longer tired. Give me a good thumbs up if you can hear me okay, because live streaming, I can't hear myself. All right, so just saw the president's speech. If you haven't seen it, I'm going to play it again at the end of this. I'm taking some notes while we're going to watch the left-wing media meltdown. But his allegations against China, President Trump's allegations against China, clearly ruffled a lot of feathers. In media. Now, let me give you a little background. I turned on NBC on purpose. I'll pull up my tweet later about this, but it's interesting that they're having the biggest meltdown because in 2015, NBC signed a memorandum of understanding with Xinhua Newsnet to coordinate all headlines and news coverage. I kid you not. That was with Steve Kappas, their former CEO or senior editor. I forgot, but I'll pull it up. Anyways, let me get back to this so you can watch a meltdown. I just need to do a little prep on this, and then we will talk. And I might try to set up a burner phone number so you can call into the show. We'll see if that works. But in the meantime, let's watch NBC, a.k.a. Xinhua Light, meltdown.
Because it was only a few months ago that the president spent a couple of days in Beijing as a guest of Chinese President Xi Jinping for a state visit. He's invited the Chinese president here to the United States for a reciprocal state visit. Is that the way you treat someone who you believe has violated your elections in the manner that the president felt was necessary to describe in this way with declassifying information on national television tonight? Does he take further action to try to impose tariffs or some other kind of punishment on the Chinese government if, he believes that this violation by them is in fact that serious? That was the takeaway this morning, or rather this afternoon, from Bernie Moreno, Republican senator allied with the president, who suggested this should change the U.S.'s relationship with China. For what it's worth, in the past, when the president has been asked questions in this vein, be it about China or Russia or other countries, he tends to shrug it off, saying things to the effect of, oh, they do this to us, we do it to them. But given the gravity and the manner in which they've built up this address tonight as such a serious threat to the American elections, what happens tomorrow and in September with the follow-through, I think, is something we should all be watching closely.
Yeah, no kidding. Garrett Haake, thank you very much. Let me bring in Jane Tim now to the conversation because, Jane, one of the things that was touched upon by President Trump, and again, documents released related to this, non-citizens. Walk us through this because you and I had a conversation about this not too long ago, and I think our viewers would enjoy hearing it too.
Yeah, so I'm reading through the White House's documentation now, and they say that over 250,000 non-citizens were found when they looked at the voter rolls of 4 states. But when you dig into that, what it's clear that they did is they analyzed the public voter rolls, the kind of voter rolls that I can buy if I have an Amex and a willingness to spend a few $100s for the public voter rolls, and put it through a federal database that once was used to administer benefits. Now, this database has been reworked by the Trump administration to try and use it for election officials. But early reports show that when you put voter rolls through this, and I'm talking the private voter rolls, the kind with social security numbers, the kind that are much more accurate than the public voter rolls, when you put people through that, you often end up with lists of newly naturalized citizens who this database, it's been reworked and jerry-rigged, finds lots of newly naturalized citizens who are being flagged as potential non-citizens. And when you put public data through that, it's going to come up with incredibly inaccurate lists. There is little indication to show that the White House's documentation actually has that many non-citizens. Occasionally, non-citizens show up on the voter rolls, but not nearly as many as the president is saying. There's also no evidence of the fraud that he said was occurring, because you have to actually vote as a non-citizen to be committing voter fraud.
Jane thank you for that. Let me go back to Ryan Nobles now, because Ryan, there was preemptive criticism of the president's speech before it began.
Right.
And now we are getting some of the reaction as well from people around the country. Walk us through it.
Yeah, let's show the preemptive first, and that's Kamala Harris, the former candidate for president who ran against Donald Trump as the nominee, but also won the race in 2020. She specifically says the 2020 election was not stolen. We won and he lost. But I do think the reaction from Democrats tonight has been pretty significant and has been pretty broad. They're angry about this. They're angry that the president of the United States would go on in a wide public forum. I'm not going to say national TV, because he wasn't on all national TV tonight for a wide range of reasons. But they're angry that he would use such a powerful platform and such a powerful bully pulpit to make these very definitive claims about the United States election system without providing the requisite proof. On one extreme end, Senator Ed Markey in Massachusetts, who I should point out is up for re-election and facing a tough primary by Seth Moulton in Massachusetts, but he is calling for the president to be impeached for undermining and subverting free and fair elections.
Or whatever else they could come up with, Markey.
That he may send ICE agents to the polls in the election.
I'm going to look up reactions to the speech.
There's a lot of concern from Democrats.
This is crazy to watch, right? No longer tired. I'm going to also,
information as an excuse.
Let me pull up that tweet, okay? And
to do something along those lines.
If you have comments and you want to join in the chat, I see there's a few hundred of you on right now. Thank you. I'm Brian O'Shea, your host, Investigate Everything. Best to join us on Rumble. If you're on X right now, you could click on the Rumble link. You'll see that pinned right at the top of my profile. So
he's the vice chair of the Intelligence Committee. He is someone, Dan knows as well, is very sober about these topics. He tends not to go overboard when he talks about them, because he sees all this intelligence, all of this information that was put out today, Mark Warner has already seen. And he said, the fact is our intelligence agencies unanimously agreed that China did not even try to change a single vote in the 2020 election. A single concurring opinion suggested that China may have tried to sway voters' opinions, but that has been public knowledge since 2021. Again, making that point that Dan and others have made, that all this information has been out there before.
30,000 feet, pull back for a second here, because there
let's
are
just listen. I'll talk on the commercial.
Concerns in some quarters about the erosion of public trust here. And when you look at some of the polling about this, most Americans, the majority of Americans, are confident in their elections, are very confident in their elections. That number is actually down since 2024. And so, Dan, this question of the trust that people have is central to, I think, some of the criticism that Ryan has referenced from Democrats and even the occasional Republican.
I think that is a danger here. A lot of experts are worried about that. People, nonpartisan experts, are worried that this kind of discussion and all these kind of allegations that don't always have clear evidence can shatter or place doubts in people's minds about our system. The other thing I want to add about the intelligence agencies is a lot of retired former intelligence officers are very worried about all of this. And these people are nonpartisan. They're quite nonpartisan, a lot of them. And
I bet they're not.
Even right of center a lot of the time. And they're worried about the intelligence agencies being used for political purposes.
They've already been used by the Biden administration and the Obama administration.
Kind of highly political interpretations of those documents, of those classified documents. And they say,
hey, Laura, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
Sober,
I know, right? Big Pinocchio noses. Let's get them up there. Lots of Pinocchio noses. Thanks for joining us, Laura Naples Selesky.
This is kind of tainting their profession in a way.
What's the phrase I've heard before? Me thinks that, right?
If you had a little deja vu from previous elections, you may be forgiven when it came to.
They don't look very comfortable.
Let
me show you why.
By mail, which again is something that brought concerns from the president's own party in an election. Previous elections we've seen where a lot of people vote by mail.
Hallie, this was another case in which the president's allegations didn't ultimately support his conclusions, which may have been ad lib. Near the end of his remarks, the president when talking about vote by mail, called it mail-in ballots are inherently corrupt. This is a president who has, in fact, used mail-in ballots himself in the past. And that allegation, I think, would be news to the citizens of states like Colorado and Utah.
Oh, come on. He used them because that was the system in place. He didn't know it was corrupted like it was.
The president has
what an asshole.
Wanted to have included in the Save America Act, has at times suggested is
America
included
Act,
in the
dude.
Save America Act to ban the use of mail-in ballots around the country. That's not in the current version of that legislation even. What's in there is just another provision that would require people who register to get a mail-in ballot to prove their citizenship. So this is another issue that has been sort of stuck in the mind of the president for years now, that he inserted into this briefing about all this other documentation. But again, not supported by the information that he put out in this speech.
Garrett Haake, thanks. Kelly,
that was
as we
weak.
look ahead
That
now,
was
because
just weak
we've got the
semantics.
midterms just coming
What
up
an
in several
idiot.
months. We're obviously going to be looking ahead at the 2028 campaign, which will be here before we know it. This is going to continue to be a topic of conversation for President Trump. He's making that very clear.
It has been one his entire national political life, so that will continue. And in using this intelligence for a specific piece of legislation that we've talked about, that's part of it. And often people view their own local election, meaning their neighborhood, the fire station, the school where they go to vote. They have confidence there. They get worried about what's happening elsewhere in the country, and this may contribute to that by the president inserting this notion. There are those who should not be voting, who might be on the rolls, or foreign interference as a possibility to shape our elections. What he didn't say tonight that many feared was federalization of the election. He did not do that tonight.
Kelly O'Donnell, Ryan Nobles, Dan DeLuce, Jane Tim, Garrett Haake, Tom Winter. Our thanks to all of you during our special coverage here on NBC News Now. Much more online at NBCnews.com. And then, of course, a full wrap-up tomorrow morning on Today.
Yeah,
I'm Hallie Jackson for all of us at NBC News. Thanks.
Okay, let's get into it. All right, so that was interesting. That was NBC News. Let me shut them off. God, I hate NBC. They're the worst. There we go. Okay, so let me call this up. All right, so I put on NBC for a reason, because NBC is so in bed with China. And if you saw tonight's speech, you know it was pretty much all about China. Let me make my face bigger here. There we go. Okay, so wait, let me get to these. This is going to be all comments, Q&A tonight. I was trying to get Naomi to join me, but she's been podcasting all day. The reason I wanted her, my wife, Naomi Wolf, to join us was because she worked at the White House. She was Al Gore's campaign advisor, and her ex-husband was Bill Clinton's speechwriter. And so it's always good to get that insider baseball about, these pundits and everything like that. But we'll do fine. She's in the middle of a riveting true crime thing that she's wanted to watch that I encouraged her to watch, so I'm not going to pull her away. The woman works hard, so we'll just carry the load together, and she'll join us tomorrow. Anyways, let me get to these comments. No Longer Tired says, if only they were so sympathetic about a president calling Americans who didn't vote for him yeah, exact. If they were emphatic, I'm sorry. If only they were so emphatic about a president calling Americans who didn't vote for him domestic terrorists. Yeah, not only that, and calling us basically we're all going to die if we don't take his stupid vaccine jab. Yeah, you're talking about Biden. Yeah, that was horrible. If you remember the Red Wedding speech or whatever that was in Philadelphia, where he basically threatened Americans. Or how about the time when he said, oh, well, we got F-16s, they got a few AR-15s. That was a crazy time, and I can't even believe that happened that 4 years. It's just nuts, and I try to remind myself every day that it happened, because we cannot let those memories fade into obscurity, because that could never happen again. And I want to say on that note, we'll get back to the speech, but what I was working on tonight, and if the computer gets gummed up a little bit, I've got Grok Build working its butt off in the background, because I'm building this 10-minute kick-ass video, getting into the entire influencer network of the Candace Owens and the, Stu Peters and all that. We've covered some of that before. But I think it's important now, because even though there's left-wing influencers that are trying to tell you Trump's bad and globalism is good and borders suck, the bigger threat is these people that present as MAGA or America First, the Tucker Carlsons and the Shannon Joys and all those people who were never MAGA. They were never America First. They just came together and they seem like conservatives simply because we were in the same battle against mandates. Okay, they were never Trump voters. They were never Make America Great Again. They were never America First, ever. Most of those people either were and are Democrats, people like Kim Iverson, Jimmy Dore, Max Blumenthal, who just got back from his love fest in Iran. He's the guy that runs the Gray Zone. If you haven't heard of him, he's horrible. But all of them, they're like they're Democrats, or they were like DeSantis voters, and then when DeSantis fell out, then they became RFK, and they hated Trump. You could go back and look. And then when RFK fell out, they begrudgingly voted for Trump because RFK was at least somewhere on the ticket, or in the administration, I'm sorry. But I just want to make that clear. There is no MAGA split. Those people that you see supporting Massey, attacking Trump, they were always never Trumpers. So we're going to address that. I was going to do that tonight, but I'd forgotten about the speech, and thank God Naomi reminded me. So this is important that we cover this, because this will have a lot of ripple effect tonight and tomorrow moving forward. It's going to be a crazy day tomorrow. So yeah, I just want to address that, but we're going to go into that whole network. I've kind of broken down really when all of these people started their anti-Semitic, anti-Israel rants, and almost all of them pivoted after October 7th. Almost all of them pivoted after October 7th, mainly parroting tropes that kind of look like they originated with Alexander Dugin over there in Russia. A lot of them also came through the Syrians, the Assad Syrians. We'll get into that. I could go down that whole rabbit hole, but I'm going to stay on point tonight. Okay, and let me see, no longer tired. They really don't seem concerned about what China did. No, they're not. That's the thing. And remember, NBC, they were the people that were attacking Epoch Times and Falun Gong and the ballet troupe. I should know that because they're my friends. Shenyun. These being the worst enemies of Xi Jinping. It was NBC that was attacking Falun Gong, which is a kind of like a clean living practice with some kind of old school, what do you call it? Like, I don't want to say meditation, but like, God, I got to slow down. I'm going too fast here. What is the, like, emotional intelligence type stuff, the, personal awareness and being in the moment. And they were attacking them on NBC, calling them a cult, and they hate gay people, and they don't hate gay people. They just don't allow gay marriage. They don't drink, they don't smoke. And they're also the second largest group of inhabitants of China's internment camps or re-education camps in Yangyang province. Alongside the Muslim Uyghurs. What do those two groups have in common? Oh, let me think about it. Clean organs, because they have clean living and they don't drink. The Uyghurs in particular have halal organs. Wonder who China's biggest customer for human organs is. I don't know. I'll let you guess that. So we'll get back to that. I could go in a million different directions without a script. Glenn, we talked yesterday on the phone. I like this guy a lot. He's actually a neighbor up there in upstate New York. Glenn, good to see you. He's spent a lot of time overseas. We had a great talk. Unfortunately, I got interrupted because we had a surprise visit from a rabbi that we just met over in near Boston, and great guy. He just kind of came by a day early. House is a mess. I have like an iScooter that I just bought the boxes everywhere. The dog is going crazy, but he came over, and unfortunately, Glenn, we got interrupted, but let's have another call because I want to get you on the show, talk about your experience over there in Israel and, your perspectives on it. What Glenn hopefully will be willing to do is, because he spent so much time there, is give people a real world look at what Israel is, what it was in the time he was spent there. So sorry to put you on the spot, Glenn, but I hope you can do it. And if you can't, I get it. I'm not the easiest host because I'm a bit ADHD. America is the only country in the world with mail-in and early balloting like this. We have Election Day for a reason. Let's get back to honoring it. Yes, unfortunately, that Supreme Court decision about Election Day kind of screwed that up. We'll get to that later because I don't want to spend the time to look it up right now. But they voted basically that there is really no Election Day. Like, ballots can come in anytime after the election as long as they're postmarked by the deadline. So what does that mean? That means we could seat some Congress people, let's say, for the Republican Party. And then, like a year later, the other side can say, hey, we just found 20,000 ballots from the mail-in bin and you're out of here. Get out of that seat. That literally can happen. So that's a problem. And I'm not a Supreme Court expert, but I don't know if that can be overturned or if it's just final. Hopefully not. Okay. They were Trojan horses. Hey, Adam Bon Cafe, welcome to the show. Who are you talking about? Who were the Trojan horses? Just post it up and I'll put it right up, okay? Okay, Glenn is standing by. Good. We're going to love having him on. We had a bad signal too, so yeah, you'll have a good time. And Glenn, by the way, this rabbi, my wife's Jewish, I'm not Jewish, but I love hanging out, especially with the Chabadniks. But this rabbi was the most interesting guy I've ever met because he literally had his outfit was almost like steampunk. I'd never seen anything like it in my life. And he's actually the nephew of one of the most powerful rabbis in the Chabad network. And he was great. I was teaching him about AI and drones, and he saw the iScooter. He's like, "Ooh, I want to ride that." I mean, the guy was cool as hell. So I'm looking forward to hanging with him again. We talked for like hours. It was so much fun. And then Adam Baum, just so you know, I haven't forgotten about you. If you could just tell me who they were, we can discuss that as well. All right. If you watched the speech tonight, I watched it sporadically while I took notes. If you did watch it, jump on and ask, tell me if you have any questions or if you have some insights you'd like to offer us. I didn't really prepare for this show, so I'm really relying on you, the audience, to give me your perspectives, your insights on what you heard there. So I'm going to go to X right now. I've got that Xinhua thing. So what we talked about earlier was why NBC is flipping out. Well, let me show you why right here. And I will get the link here. I'm putting the link to this tweet in the comments. So hopefully you'll be able to see that. And this is where we're going. Okay. All right. So share screen. There we go. All right. So check this out. So this is from my X account. If you're not on there, just go to @BrianO'SheaSBI. Give me a follow. You can't message me if I don't follow you, but if you throw a public message to say, follow you from the show, I will follow you back. If I haven't done that and you've done that before, let me know and I will follow you back. Okay, so I asked back in May 24th, 2021, and this is something people should think about, is, I'm sorry, I'm just looking at, my comment came up as Naomi Wolf. Has anyone asked as to why NBC News gained access and a VIP tour of the Wuhan lab before and with much more access than the WHO's pretend investigative team? You see there, I, tagged Peter Daszak, who I'm pretty sure blocked me, and Jennifer at NTD. That's Jennifer Zhang. She's no longer there. She's still a good friend, though. So if you remember back in, early, I want to say like late 2020, it was NBC News that got full access to the Wuhan lab, and dare I say the new and improved Wuhan lab, because in the earlier pictures of the Wuhan lab, they didn't have all this stuff on. They didn't have the big 4-inch thick doors, and they beefed it up. And then NBC did a powder puff tour through there, but they got through there before even the WHO could get a tour of that thing. I find that strange. But if you go back in time a little, I said, Well, I'm sure it has nothing to do with NBC News gaining such unprecedented access, nor to. I'm sure this had nothing to do with NBC News gaining such unprecedented access, nor to do with why NBC News constantly tries to undermine the Epoch Times, the enemy of China. Well, let me tell you why. This is the only copy of this mention of this MOU I got is from a Newswire, but the I hope that link still is good. I think I saved it. Let me read it to you if you're having trouble seeing it. Okay, so this was 2010. I said 2015. I meant 2010. And this from the Newswire back then, November 24th. Xinhua deal with U.S. network NBC. Is there a devil in the details? Xinhua, reported by Xinhua, 24 November 2010. Xinhua News Agency and the National Broadcasting Company, NBC, signed a memorandum of cooperation. Cooperation, I thought it was understanding. Wow. Here Tuesday to establish a multi-level business partnership in the area of international TV news service. It marked the latest marketing endeavor in North America of China Xinhua News Network Corporation, CNC, Xinhua's TV arm created 1 year ago. CNC, which is aimed at setting up channels around the world, now gathers an average of 800 minutes of Chinese and English news content each day, the longest in that regard among the world's media organizations. Under the MOC signed Tuesday, Xinhua and NBC, who you just saw whining, will conduct extensive and in-depth cooperation in TV news content gathering, production, broadcast, and personnel training. Xinhua President Li Kongzhang said during a visit to the United States in May that cooperation with its international partners will greatly boost Xinhua's global service. Accordingly, the partnership between CNC and NBC will help the two broadcasters increase their influence in global market and provide a better service for their audience. Steve Kappas, president of NBC News at that time, said at the MOC signing ceremony that media organizations are shouldering great responsibilities. Amid growing public demand for information, which requires cooperation and joint efforts among these organizations. Okay. NBC News, should we go back and see how they're reacting now? Probably, but let me just, so I can explain it to you if you don't already know. Let me just pull this up so I get the wording right. But Xinhua News Agency is actually the public-facing arm of the Chinese Ministry of Propaganda. And I always like sources, so, okay. It's the official state news agency of the People's Republic of China, and it's a ministry level institution of the People's Republic of China's State Council. It functions as the primary conduit for Chinese foreign ministry and other government branches to release official statements, policy, state narratives to domestic and international audience. State narratives means government propaganda, just so we're clear on that. And that is from, so you know who Xinhua is, and that is, you know, my source is Xinhua. So there we go. Okay, so there's that. So remember, and I don't know if they still have a memorandum of cooperation, but it seems like they did all through the pandemic, if you recall their coverage. And I would guess that New York Times does too, because they were doing nothing but puff pieces on China. Okay, so let me see here. Stop sharing that and put my big face up back up there. Okay. What do we have here? Glenn Tan, yep. Standing by. Thank you, sir. Okay, so there's that. Are we still live? What's happening here? Uh-oh. Okay, I don't know if you guys can hear me. I got a note saying we're not live. But let me check X and see if I'm actually not live or live. And the reason I've got so many things running on the computer right now, normally I don't, but building some big stuff here, so yeah, it looks like I'm stuck. All right, let me refresh. Come on. Okay, I think we're back. I think we're back. Okay, someone, Glenn, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. I'm watching over here. Why do I look so yellow? I'm watching over here on. Yeah, I'm getting all gummed up. This is terrible. All right, we'll give it a second. And again, if you just are joining us, I've got some AI running in the background building a really good video, but it's really taking up a lot of my bandwidth. We may have to deal with some. I think we're good. If I touch my beard there, okay, so it keeps going up. All right, let me shut down some of these things here, and that should certainly help. Okay, we're good. We're back. Yes, we are back. Okay, cool. All right, back in business. All right, I shut down as much as I could in the background. Oh, you know what? Let me shut that off too while I'm at it. Okay, kill that. Okay, I've shut down everything I can possibly shut down, so I think we're good. All right, who's your father? Okay, we're good. And by the way, you guys can put up any comment, even if it's mean or weird, as long as it's not gross, and I will put it up. All right, got me. Thank you, sir. Glenn, thank you. Some rubber banding, though. Yeah, it's going to happen. It's unfortunately like... And then John Bobcat, who's your father? Well, he's with the Angels now, John, but thanks for asking. Let me see who you are. That's kind of a weird question. I don't got time. Gotcha. So, yes. All right. So, anyways, that's the skitty on China. And just so you guys know, there's also several. I was doing nothing but China at the beginning of the pandemic, and there's so many news agencies that are like deep in bed with China. Find all. I'm just having Grok pull them up. All posts by @Brian O'Shea. Discuss news organizations working with or partnered with China. And yes, it's about the speech, but we are going to get back to that. But before we do, I just want to see, there were a couple of them, like, like Business Insider. They were pretty much bought by like China, AP, another one. Here we go. Okay. Here's a compilation of relevant posts by @Brian O'Shea. Let's pull them up. Most we got Too Close to Call. Post referencing NBC Steve Kappas quotes earlier. Okay. Here we go. This one's good. Yeah, so here, I don't have I'll share the screen, and I'll get back to it. But here we have just sharing this screen there. There we go. All right, so I know AP and AFP and Reuters, all three have memorandums of cooperation with the Chinese Communist Party at the time. So let me find those for you, and then we'll get back to the speech. Okay. No, seriously, he's dead, John. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. That's what I meant. God rest his soul, but yeah, it's been a while. And thanks, I appreciate that. Okay, so we have Associated Press pretty much as CCP mouthpiece. Let's see what I'm talking about there. Yeah, here we go. So Associated Press also is in bed with China. Okay, and we're going to go to their comment. So we should go. We've already seen NBC. We're going to go to AP. We're going to go to Reuters. We're going to see what they were all saying. Pretty much a CCP mouthpiece. I put this up in 2022. Coordinating its coverage with Xinhua, CCP's propaganda station, ministry level influence entity. So back in January of 2021, I posted this often, but I think I should again. But first, here's Associated Press's About Us note, and what is stated in their own words. They say, factual reporting founded in 1846, AP today remains the most trusted source of fast, accurate, unbiased in all news formats. Now, in 2018, here we go. Xinhua, AP, sign MOU to enhance cooperation. Let's see what that looks like if it's still up. I know the Taiwanese will keep it up. Looks good, looks good. Looks like it might actually come up. Yeah. All right. Let me refresh that so we get a... Yep. All right. All right. So for those of you... Now, AP, if you don't... I'm sure you know what AP is, but they're a newswire. They push news out to most major organizations. Xinhua AP signed MOU to enhance cooperation. This is 2018, November 25th, 2018. China's Xinhua News Agency, the Press of the United States, on Sunday signed an MOU in Beijing with consensus in diverse aspects over further enhancing mutually beneficial cooperation. There's that word again. During this meeting, Gary Pruitt, President and CEO, Kai Mingzhao, President of Xinhua News Agency, said cooperation between the two news agencies has kept expanding and deepening since the two signed news exchange agreement in 1972. Facing profound changes in the landscape of media. Okay, I'm not going to read all that nonsense. While hailing the long-term close partnership between AP. Guys, AP. This is... AP and Reuters are like the two main news wires that go to even Fox. Okay, so you ever wonder why, like, a couple things happened? Everyone was up in arms when Trump called it the China virus. Everyone was up in arms when he said China's stealing things. Well, that's because they all work for China. All of the legacy news outlets. Okay. And now what has happened? Well, here's what's happened. Go back to Trump's inauguration. China, probably up until November of Trump's election, China was all the news. It's like everything. Then President Trump gets in office. He releases the whole page on China being responsible for the Wuhan lab. And guess what happens? They disappear. China disappears as a main news story. Didn't you ever think that was weird? Like, they pretty much have disappeared. And they were the talk of the town. They got replaced by people shouting about Epstein. They got replaced by people shouting about surveillance and everything else. So there was Epstein, and then there were just so many, but there's so many things that people beat on about, but no one's talking about China. All of these patriots that are up in arms and hoping that Massey would not lose his primary and get spanked like a little girl, but he did. They never talk about China. You ever notice that? If anything, it takes someone like Ryan Matta, and he's promoting Chinese cars right now and saying that Trump won't let Chinese cars into the country because he wants the middle class to stay poor. No, Trump won't let them in because they're banned in most countries because they listen to everything you're doing and where you go in the car. So yeah, there's that. All right, so what do we got? We got NBC, we got AP. Okay, and if you want to see a picture of this guy, there we go. There he is with his buddy. Gary Pruitt. I don't know if he's still president. There they are right after this. And I gotta say, the Chinese CEOs, they always look like they swallowed a mouse every time. And the Western CEOs that sign these stupid deals with China, they always look like they're about to get executed and they don't know it. They look like they went to a banquet and they're the meal and they don't know it. Kind of like that guy that walks into the dance club in the first Blade movie and he's dancing around and doesn't realize it's a whole club full of vampires and he's the main course. That's what these guys always look like. All right. So a few more questions here. Yes, 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 rubber banding. And we're communicating, John. That's what matters for sure. Okay, for sure. All right, let's go on. Before we do that, let me see what the reactions are. And just so you guys know, I use Grok. I like Grok. I use it for research, not to tell me what something means, but more to find things. So it's a great tool for that. I don't trust it to write. I don't trust it to analyze, because it's a people pleaser. And the analyst you're getting from any AI is going to be what it gleans from a crowdsourced majority of opinion. So it's never really that accurate. It's mob accurate, but it's really good for, like, let's say you want to do something with the Charlie Kirk pretrial last week. You could go to Grok and say, hey, Grok, pull all the files that come from .gov URLs, exclude all .coms or .orgs on the Tyler Robinson pretrial, and it'll put those in a nice little stack for you. So that's what's really nice about it. So that's what I like about it. It saves a lot of time on document pulls. And so let me see here. So what are the latest? Actually, you know what? Let me just do the mic. That's easier. Hey, Grok, which are the latest reactions to the president's speech tonight from NBC, AP, ABC, MS Now, and Reuters affiliated news platforms? Okay. It's not going to work. Let me try this then. Latest... Oh, that's right, because I'm using the mic for this. Reactions to president's speech from left-leaning and legacy news pundits. Okay, it's a lot of them coming up now. Hey, what's going on? How you doing, DMC Grew 4? Good to see you again. Hey, Claude. I haven't used Claude yet. What do you think of it, Bobcat? Do you think it's good? Everyone, well, a lot of the pros, like a lot more of my techie buddies, they combine several AIs. I don't really do a lot with AI except for like video. Like I'll make montages and everything, and it does a really good job. Really good job. Saves me a lot of time. And like I said, I did investigations for a long time, and then I was in the intelligence community for a hell of a long time. So my whole life has been research and intelligence gathering, information gathering, and it's been a real useful tool for setting up daily tasks like pull all the Luigi Mangione files as they become available, drops it on my desktop, or just pulling a lot of stuff so I don't have to hunt through all the internet garbage that just clogs it up. It just goes right there and does it in seconds. But all right. So here's what we got. Let's see. So we got, share this tab instead. There we go. All right. So we got CNN's strong skepticism and non-live coverage. Kate, oh, that's right. They didn't. I heard a few news outlets didn't even play the speech. That's criminal. Okay. Caitlin Collins noted they would monitor but not air live. Okay, let's get check that out. Caitlin Collins hates Donald Trump because he's I don't know if you remember, he called her a very mean person, which was hilarious. So you're very mean person. I loved it. Okay, that's coming up here very slowly. So we'll just shut these things off. God, I just bought this GMK Tech computer. It should be running a lot faster. So, okay. Let's see what she has to say. For Christ's sake. All right, we're not gonna do that. All right, so Caitlin Collins says, John King says he's never heard a prime time speech like the one Trump just gave. Okay, Mediaite, by the way, they're another like left-wing BS, like lefty, horrible left-wing piece of news trash. I just did a Substack on the poll that said Mondami was more popular with American Jews than Netanyahu, and I proved that, yeah, the poll may be true, but what they didn't tell you is that over half of the adult Jews that they sampled were 18 years old and had just turned 18. And I don't care who you are. Most 18-year-olds, they hate whoever's popular to hate because that's what the girls hate or that's what the guys hate, and they want to be on the in crowd. It's just 18-year-olds. But they didn't reveal that information. Well, Mediaite was one of the first people to say, oh my God, almost gleefully, like, look at that, American Jews like Mondami, the Muslim who hates Jews more than they like Netanyahu. Turned out to be totally false. Well, not false, but it's, again, they're interviewing 18-year-olds on the economy. And in my report, I showed that, like, most 18-year-olds polled have no clue, like, what like micro and macroeconomics are, what a budget is. They've never had a job, but that's the people that the AP NORC chose to poll. Different story. All right, so that's what he says. Let's see what he says here. This sucks. I'm kind of going to share this tab instead. All right, John King said President Trump's primetime address was unlike any he'd heard before. Here we go. Let's play it. By the way, my computer's normally not this slow if you're just joining us. Again, I'm rolling some auto stuff in the background, so. All right. We don't care what John King says, but I am trying to get messaging from these people. Wait. He just said it doesn't do anything about that except for pushing Trump's voter ID thing. The voter ID is the point, you moron. It proves or does its best to prove you're an American. You see the way they do that? They slip it in like Trump's just this crazy guy that wants these quirky little things. No. Let me tell you what's going on in New York right now. So they just had the primaries where like a fraction of the people that even came out for Mondami even came out for these primaries. And give me a second. Drop my pen. So this is how bad it is, okay? This is how bad it is. I went and I went to I'm not even registered to vote in New York. We live there, but I'm registered to vote here in Massachusetts. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I am registered in New York, but I can't vote in the city, okay? So I'm not registered there. I'm registered way up north. And, cannot hear. Couldn't hear, bro. Can you hear me now? Let me check. Test. Can you guys hear me now? Anything? Okay, good. Thanks, PT Moon. Welcome. Good to see you. Excellent. Thank you. Thanks, John. Okay, so let me see if I can pull this up. Brian O'Shea. Let me just pull up my replies here. So anyways, we're in Brooklyn. We have a place in Brooklyn and over near Prospect Park. So I go to just a random poll, they call them poll sites. And I'll replay the CNN audio. So I go to this random polling site and I had my phone on, but I just stuck it in my pocket so I do have the audio of the interaction. This is how bad it is. I go in and I said, hey, how's it going? I just want to see him at the right polling location. And she's like, sure, what's your name? Now, she doesn't ask for my ID because they don't ask for IDs in New York. So I give her the name Brian with a Y and then a fake last name. She's like, where do you live? And I just made up an address. And she's like, oh, yeah, you're not here because I literally have hard copy ledgers to show that you can vote there, but they don't check your ID. So this is where it gets crazy. She says to me, oh, that's okay. I'm going to hook you up. I'm going to give you this, it's called a voter, reference pass or something. But she basically writes up this permission slip. I wish I had it right in front of me because it's over there and I don't want to leave the screen. But she gives me this permission slip. And I said, oh, what's that do? And she's like, well, you're going to go to this station because she found the station associated with my fake address, which is amazing because it's a fake address. And she puts down all the information. And then she says, I said, okay, so why don't I just go there and go sign in? She goes, no, with this, you can just walk right in and no one's going to check you. This shows that I've already checked you. And I'm thinking, but you didn't check me. I just totally gave you a bunch of BS. You wrote it up on a piece of paper and that was it. And so I go to the other polling station and they're like, hi, sir, are you here to vote? I go, I sure am. And they're like, thank you. And I hold up the permission slip and yeah. And they're all wearing DSA shirts too, which is weird as well, illegal. But anyways, the point is, you need voter ID. Anyone can walk in these blue states and just walk in and vote, as I did. And when I voted during the presidential election, was trying to force my ID on them, and they were getting mad at me for trying to force my ID on them. So John King, dude, who I've never liked, he just has that face, looks like he's constipated all the time. Guys, I'm kind of reading your comments and doing this at the same time. So let me reshare that screen and I will turn on the audio. But, I don't know how you can have any fair elections without voter ID. It's insane. I mean, it's absolutely insane. And I never really voted that much in person because I was in the military, so I would always just do absentee. Okay, but it was weird to vote in person, and it was weird to not being, you're not allowed to show your ID. It's not like they're not going to ask, but if you try to show it, they're not going to let you. Okay, here we go. I'm going to replay this, and while this is playing, I'm going to try to find that tweet because I did put an image of that thing up. Okay, as soon as this plays, guys, this is great audience participation. Please give me a thumbs up. I'll leave the subtitles on in case it sounds bad. Okay, got everything is up. I'm going to turn the sound all the way up. All right, here we go.
What was your takeaway from tonight?
A lot of ominous tone from the president, ominous words from the president. It sounded more like a spy novel. A familiar complaint to you, Caitlin, about the deep state. The most striking thing the president did was
Good on the sound.
Focused mostly on China, and he said he was releasing all of these new documents tonight that were going to prove more things about China. He says trying to get voter roll information, trying to learn about how to pry into voting machines and voting systems. He never directly connected any of that to changing an election result. That's important. I don't have the documents in front of me. We'll see if they get you there, but the president never did. The only time the president said anything about nefarious action actually changing an election was he said there are documents here showing how China helped the Maduro regime in Venezuela in 2020 change votes to stay in power. That is the only specific claim of actually rigging or changing an election result the president made. Much of it was, again, China's trying to do this, Russia did a little bit of that, but again, focused mostly on China, about things we've known about, things that have been in past intelligence reports about China. Yes, trying to get information about U.S. voters. Yes, trying to test the vulnerabilities of U.S. election systems. But nowhere did the president in that speech connect to they changed the result in this state, or they changed the result in this precinct. There was no connecting the dots to that point speech. I don't have the documents in front of me. Our team is looking at that way. But the tone of it was overwhelming. What was most striking to me, Caitlin, you covered the Trump White House at the time, was he had a boogeyman, and it was the familiar deep state. The president saying that this was all kept from him, kept from John Ratcliffe, his then director of national intelligence, kept from Gina Haspel, his then CIA director. Marco Rubio, who's now the Secretary of State, was the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee at the time. He has access to just about everything in U.S. Trump was making the point that people working for information away from him about what he alleges is a deeper, more nefarious Chinese plot than we have ever known about. Look, the proof will be in the document. But again, the president never connected the dots in any way to saying, and they did this in Georgia, for example, or they did this in Arizona, for example. He talked about a Democratic voter registration group in Michigan that he said, as if, this was a horrible, horrible thing. They were giving out gift cards to people if they registered more voters, as if there was some nefarious nature to that. So a lot of it was greatest hits. There were some new allegations about China having maybe a more aggressive role.
I just want to stop right there. You can't hand out gift cards at an election site. This guy knows this. He's been doing this for a while. He's had that weird nose since I was a kid. So yeah.
Than we've known about in the past. But again, nothing from the president where you can say, Party X did this, changed an election here in a way that changed the outcome. I did not hear one word of that. I heard a lot of ominous. And again, he says.
Glenn's making a great point. Gift cards. Were they gift cards? Or were they Sodexo cards that they were giving out to the illegals on the border? Because Sodexo had that contract. Remember, the illegals were getting like $5,000. Hell, I almost went down to Texas and I was going to step across the border a few times just to pay for like my new truck. That's a good point. And by the way, this is for those of you just joining us tonight. It's kind of more of a community type show. So if anyone wants to dig into what gift cards he's talking about, that'd be really interesting. And if you get the info to me or post it and just tag me, that's fine. I'll never steal your credit. If you give it to me and just tell me the way you want to be cited, I will always give you credit. This is not my full-time job. I love this job, but unfortunately, I have to make money other ways. And, I like helping my clients. I do have a private intelligence consulting business. That's how I met my wife. But, if someone wants to dig into that, dig into it. It'd be great to connect those gift cards and see if the same gift cards that were given out, to the illegals crossing the border. And if you shoot me an email to brian@dailyclout.io, I've got plenty of sources for you that you could check that against. And if you go to Rumble and go all the way back to when this show was called Unrestricted Invasion, you'll see there with my good friend JJ Carroll, and that's all we covered was the border. JJ is a 25-year retired border agent. I think he's back at ICE now, so lots of good resources in there. And definitely check out the Tent Foundation, which is tent.org, tent.org. Probably one of the biggest organizations responsible for the illegal invasion of this country.
He wants the Congress to pass the SAVE Act. I've spoken to a number of experts today who think foreign meddling is a problem. The United States should do more about it. They don't see much in the SAVE Act that does anything about that. They think it's all about Trump's voter ID push.
John, as someone who covered the White House, have you ever seen a primetime address or heard a primetime address like this one?
No. Again, if the president has new information about foreign meddling is a big deal in our elections. Has been for quite a long time. It's gotten caught into a very polarized debate because of the Mueller investigation, because of after 2016. It is impossible now in the Donald Trump era to have an adult conversation about a very legitimate issue. It would be nice if Democrats and Republicans could get together. As the president said at one point, why can't we do this on a bipartisan basis? Well, he's the reason they can't do some of it on a bipartisan basis, because he keeps telling Democrats they're crooks and they stole elections. But no, the ominous tone of it, presidents speak to the nation when wars start.
Wait. I'm sorry, guys. We got to clip that. And we got to clip it tonight because that's going to disappear. Did he just have a meltdown? Like, that was like the biggest sissy meltdown in a grown man I've ever seen. And he's such a hypocrite. They are crooks. They've been proven to be crooks. Look at Nick Shirley's work. Look at James O'Keefe's work. Look at our work. Look at Naomi's work. They're crooks. They're crooks on everything. And there's a lot of rhinos that are crooks too. Don't get me wrong. But he's acting like Donald Trump's the reason why they can't have these cross-partisan discussions like adults. See, this is why the Democrats are losing their own party, because they talk down to everyone and they act like everyone's stupider than they are. And I know this. I'll tell you why, because for a lot of reasons. But the biggest exposure to it I had was when I first met my wife. She and I started dating, and I started going to a lot of really kind of cool elite events, really nice people. I'd say 99% of them. But every now and then I would run into like someone from CNN, someone like that. I think I did meet this guy, and I'd always stay away from politics, but for her sake, because I'm there as her plus one. But man, they would get on Donald Trump and they just would have meltdowns, and they'd be like, well, it's so, the American people must be stupid to vote for this guy. And I'm like, well, no, this guy campaigned really well, and he used you instead of me more than the other person. But this is a great example of like the kind of elitist mentality a lot of these people have. It's disgusting, and it doesn't resonate obviously with conservatives, but as they're learning the hard way, the Democrats, and yes, I'm making a guess at, John King here is a Democrat. Call me crazy. But this is why they're losing their own party. I mean, I was out there interviewing some of these young people at No Kings event in Boston, and they were telling me, I was surprised. They were like, we don't read the New York Times. We don't watch CNN. I was like, oh, no kidding. Really? It was news to me. And I said, what do you think of, the Democratic, who's your pick for the DNC to run against Donald Trump? They're like, we hate the DNC. And I was like, wait a minute, are you a Democrat? They're like, we're Democratic Socialists. Now we've seen they're losing their party. Yeah, I mean, it's bittersweet because I like watching them get spanked, but at the same time, I'd rather deal with these idiot Democrats than deal with these very energetic, ever-growing socialists, because they're kind of like, they're like the White Walkers, man. They're not stopping. They're funny to look at. They smell bad. They have bad breath. But let me tell you something about the DSA. They're engaged. They're engaging. Okay. And they know how to get these people who are isolated to get out there and work for free. I'm in Brooklyn, man. That's like the heartland of the socialists. And yeah, I even joined the DSA under a pseudonym, same pseudonym I used for the fake registration. And by the way, I didn't break any laws. I never actually voted. So, but I got to say, like, they're running a good ground game, the DSA. They're running a really good ground game, because what they're doing is they're not just saying, hey, come sign this petition, or hey, come vote for our guy. They're like, hey, come on in, man. Let's have some coffee. Hey, we have coffee with comrades every Tuesday. Oh, there's a 5K run. Oh, you got kids? That's okay. We got a whole daycare that someone lent us. You want to learn free martial arts? You can do that here. You go to the DSA website. Like, they're not offering, like, some political engagement. They're offering people a social life. And believe it or not, in the cities, so many of these kids that just moved to the city or just graduated college, they really don't know a lot of people. I see them around my neighborhood. They look terrified because, they're, the minority, the white kids. And they're very isolated. But then what happens is the DSA is dragging them out. So my experience with them was, I gave them a burner phone number, and I won't read it because I don't want to blow my cover, because I want to get to a few more meetings and learn some things. But I got to say, like, I'm sitting there, and the snow came in. There was supposed to be a big meeting with some Nazi or socialist or communist socialist Nazi or whatever the hell they were running in the district that day for a candidate. And the snow's coming in. And I get a personal text message from Byron or whoever. And he's like, hey, Brian, we're going to have to cancel the meeting tonight. And I thought it was automated. So I write back and I go, MP, I'll just look for the rescheduling. He's like, well, we haven't rescheduled yet, but there's plenty of other events. And by the way, if you need anyone to help you shovel your snow, we get a bunch of people out there tomorrow. And I'm like, well, I'm not that old, but I appreciate it. And he's like, yeah, no problem. He's like, oh, there's coffee with comrades tomorrow. And I was like, great. And then I get this automated text from, like, it goes like this. On my regular phone, I get this automated text. It says, hey, Brian, I hate to do this, but this is Jim Jordan and I need your money. And I'm like, delete, you know what I mean? So I'm not saying I was being won over by the DSA. Of course not. I'm too old and wise for that, but I see how they do it. I could see how an 18, a 19, a 20-year-old, even a 28-year-old, kind of like, incel or whatever they call them, or just someone with just kind of doesn't have a lot of outgoing qualities. They bring them in and they give them a life and they give them rank and they put them in charge of committees. And then really the negative reinforcer is they'll kick you out if you're not towing the line and you're not out there with your Mondami t-shirt handing things out. But they've got a good ground game, and it's the largest communist organization this country has ever seen. It's the largest one in history. Let's finish up whiny John here. I'm just going to rewind that because I want to see his meltdown one more time. I kind of like these scriptless shows that I do sometimes.
To the
They're
nation
fun.
when wars start. Presidents speak to the nations after tragedies. Presidents do speak to the nation to ask for big policy priorities, but we're 15 and a half weeks from an election in which, the numbers, the president's approval ratings in the 30s, his party's in deep trouble. This is not the issue they think is going to save them in November.
Oh, well, all right.
Today we're unboxing Charmin Ultra Soft Smooth Tear. Wow.
God, how do I stop it? I can't. I'm sorry. They're doing a toilet paper commercial. We're going to have to live through it. There's nothing cute about toilet paper. Okay, let's do some comments while we're waiting for the toilet paper. Okay, here we go. Nope, they're done. All right. That's Jennifer Saki. Okay, we'll hold off on that one for now. We'll get back to it. Okay, so they were talking about election fraud. I got something from the Gateway Pundit. Now, if you don't read the Gateway Pundit, I highly suggest it, because Jim Hoft is a very good friend of mine. I did some work with him and his team on Michigan voter fraud, and the stuff we uncovered was amazing. And it's one you definitely want to keep up with. So I'm going to put that up in a second. All right, so let me see. New info. That's right. And guys, go through my tweets and like some of the people I was interacting with a lot. There's a lot of stuff. Like, go all the way back to 2020 if you want to know about China. You want to know about pretty much Biden giving Afghanistan to the Chinese, who were under the guard and protection of the Pakistan Taliban, who's the headquarters. Check it out. Like, here's a fun fact. Do you know that on July 15th, Anthony Blinken, the then Secretary of State, he said on July 15th that ISIS-K was no longer a threat. They'd moved their operations to Northern Africa. That's in an official State Department document. So what happened August 15th? Oh my God, ISIS-K ran over the entire country of Afghanistan, which I always thought was weird because right as they're doing that, Biden decides to leave behind an entire armada of brand new military equipment. Left it behind. And if you look at those pictures, that stuff is brand new. And another thing too on Afghanistan, if you look at those pictures, those uniforms fit perfectly. They fit the so-called Taliban perfectly. You may recall at that time they were trying to get us to side with the Taliban, saying the Taliban is holding back ISIS-K. No, they're not. ISIS-K is a straw man. It's always been Taliban. And here's one more thing about Afghanistan. We're doing a whole show on that. I've got a great graphic that I spent too much time on, but I'll show you a sneak peek of that. It's like a tile. But did you ever see any Afghan security force bodies? I mean, Taliban is famous for, like, dragging, and ISIS the same thing, dragging the bodies of American contractors and, the people they kill, dragging them through the streets, stripping their bodies down, dismembering them. Like if you remember the horrible pictures from the beginning of Operation Enduring Freedom, it was terrible. I didn't see one Afghan national, I think it's called the National Defense Force or Army. I didn't see one body. I didn't see anyone being paraded around, beheaded, nothing. It's like ISIS-K came, somehow morphed with the Taliban, and then just took over the government. I also didn't see any battles. Did you see any battles except for them blowing up our own people with our own equipment that Biden gave them? Did you see any battles? Did you see any skirmishes, any ISIS-K duking it out with Taliban? Did you ever see any of that? No. Because Biden administration gave that country to China. How do I know this? Because China had increased their trade with Afghanistan back in July. You can find that tweet there too. I've got all the receipts. You have people in the Kabul Times. You have these special forces of Afghanistan saying, please, dear God, don't leave. You can't leave because we're not ready yet. And then you have Blinken saying, well, they said they were ready and they got beat, and it's like, no. They gave that country away. Why'd they leave behind so many Americans? Do you remember they left over 1,000 Americans behind? Contractors, journalists. Why'd they do that, do you think? Why would they do that? Two reasons. A, gets rid of a lot of witnesses. I'm just speculation. Okay, but B, there's another thing that I know a lot about, and that's called a travel risk insurance. So I used to do, one thing about my industry, you do a lot of different types of jobs because we're contractors. So every now and then, my friend Gary, he'll call me, and he runs the British security group out of Virginia, and he's like, "Hey mate, you want to go on a close protection gig? I'm going to Abu Dhabi," and I'm like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And you just ride along, and you're there to support and get the client off. You're doing close protection. So, what you learn about, a couple times we had to do things with travel risk insurance. So when executives fly, or journalists, even you could get travel risk insurance through a lot of vendors. It's relatively cheap, and it usually has about $100,000 to $500,000 payout. But for CEOs like We'd Protect, the payout's like $5 to $10 million. Okay, and it protects them. What it basically does is, if they're taken hostage or you're taken hostage, it means there's a bank with middlemen and lawyers and teams like I occasionally work with who will negotiate for your release. Now, terrorist groups know this. It's a whole economy. It's called the KFR economy, or kidnap for ransom. They know this, and they won't even hurt a lot of hostages if they find that travel risk card on them. And because they know, okay, they call the number on the back, and the card is for the terrorist, by the way. It's not for the person with the insurance. When they get rolled up, these terrorists will take the car. Oh, you got travel risk insurance. They call. They're like, hey, we've got, John Bobcat here. We got, PT Moon, and got Sotheby's says they're insured. So what are they worth to you? And, the negotiator will say, they're worth about 50 grand. And then the captor will say, we want 500 million. And then they're like, we'll give you 65 grand. And then they're like, we want 100,000. Then they're like, 65 grand. And they're like, okay, fine, 65 grand. So most of those people in Afghanistan had travel risk insurance. So if you think about it, each one of those human beings is worth at a minimum $50,000 to $65,000. What a great way to pay a ransom. But we know the Biden administration would never launder money and hostages or art. You know, they would never do that sort of thing. So I'm just crazy. All right. So here we go. Of course, Trump's responsible. Of course, Trump is responsible. Trump and the Jews. Don't forget the Jews are responsible too. Trump is the problem. Yes, and the Jews. El Nino. The Jews are like this decade's El Nino, if you're old enough to remember that. TDS is real, bro. No, it's actually a real thing. John Bobcat, you are not incorrect. It's actually a real thing. Yeah. It's like mass formation. Yeah, no, it's true. Matthias Desmond. I love Matthias, by the way. I met him at CPAC. He's a great guy. We did a lot of partying. He's a cool dude. Really was happy to meet him. Okay, so word. Absolutely. It's a strategy, says PT Moon. No matter, and PT Moon's a friend of mine. You know, she's great. PT Moon says, no matter what, blame the right and Trump, and blaming capitalism is another strategy to divide. Well, it's a Marxist strategy. And if you notice, to divide, they're no longer blaming conservatives. Now they're blaming MAGA, because the left perceives what they think is a MAGA split, because all of the kind of libertarian isolationist flat earthers are breaking away, but they were never really with us. Like I said at the beginning of the episode, they were just with us on a few battles. I mean, don't forget, like Max Blumenthal, who I think the only countries he likes are like Iran, China, Cuba, and Venezuela, and Syria, and Russia, of course. But even he was like against the mandates. So I think a big mistake, a lot of like, you know, conservative podcasters and stuff who are kind of new to the whole social media space and the whole political activism space. I think the mistake they made was thinking, hey, that dude was with us during the mandates. He's my bro. He's a good guy. No, he's not. You know, don't forget, you know, Stalin was with us during World War II. That friendship was only good for one battle. And that's what people have to realize. It's like someone might work with us now to get the Save America Passed Act. That's okay. They did that. You check that box. But you don't just trust them for life, just like you would never trust anyone for life. That's the thing. You just don't do it. And that's a big mistake. And I think that's how a lot of these people got into the movement, as some people call it. It's organic. Let me see. Strategy word mass for. Yeah, no, definitely is. Communist propaganda. That's all CNN is now. Yeah, CNN is a particular kind of propaganda. CNN is basically a revolving door with Chinese. A lot of kind of like, you know, it's like, I think he calls it communism with like, it's like Xi Jinping thought or something. It's just weird. But they pretty much echo. So here's the layout, right? You've got a couple spheres of influence going on in today's world. You've got the multipolarists, that'd be your Duginites, Putin. These are the people that want something that's based on an ex-KGB officer's doctrine. It's called the Primakov doctrine, where they see the world as being divided into spheres: a North American sphere, South American, Near East, Far East, and Eurasia. Russia will run Eurasia. That's why they're always trying to buddy with the Germans. Never works because Germans are terrified of them. China will run most of Asia. Iran was supposed to run most of the Near and Middle East. I don't know how that was going to work out. No one seems to care about Africa. And then South America was supposed to kind of be run by the Venezuelans. And then we'd run North America. And everyone would stay in their spheres and leave each other alone. But see, the problem, and that'd be great in a cartoon world. But the problem with multipolarism, okay, is that you see, it's all our enemies and us. So it would also require us to cede our gains economically, militarily, to whichever sphere, I guess the sphere council would deem, they should go to. Now, the managed decline of this country was leading, I believe, towards that multipolarist view of the world, okay, which comes right out of Russia, okay? And a lot of MAGA guys kind of espouse those views too. If you hear people saying things like global south, they're probably multipolarists. Alexander Dugin he didn't invent it, he modernized it. He took it, I believe, from Primakov. But he is the guy known as Putin's brain. He's kind of like today's Rasputin. And he's losing his mind right now. He can't, he started losing his mind when we took Maduro, because that's messing up the multipolarist plan. Lost his mind even more when we went full on Iran. And in my opinion, you saw my other show, Iran was never about regime change or nukes even. I don't believe it was. I think it was about getting the Iranians to shut down the strait, and then we made sure they kept it shut, and it's still shut. Because by then, we have taken over most of the global oil supply. Okay, remember, the Gulf countries are our partners. Biggest mistake Iran made was trying to drop bombs on, Qatar and Abu Dhabi and Dubai. That was stupid. And then Saudi Arabia. So that's the multipolarists. They're over there. That's mainly like Syria. You see if this lines up for you. Syria, Russia, China, but we'll get to China. They got their own thing going because China's playing nice with the multipolarists, but China's got their own unipolar thing going. Venezuela, Iran, Syria, Cuba, and I think Trump saw this and his administration saw this, so they really checkmated them across the world. We pretty much own the Strait of Malacca too. Don't forget that, because back in February we signed a deal with the Indonesians to do joint military exercises in the Strait of Malacca, which means the end of Russian shipping going through there. Wouldn't want them to accidentally get hit with a torpedo. That's our interest in the north up near Greenland, is about cutting off trade routes. Okay, so when the Iranians shut the Strait of Hormuz, that had no impact on us. I know you could say gas prices and all that, but if you look at oil prices, especially the Brent crude, that's been steadily coming down since like the middle of March. It has nothing to do with these negotiations. But see, what happens is, as we go along that path and as these pumps can't pump oil, what's going to happen? My weird camera just did that zoom thing. Go back. As they are not pumping oil infrastructure starts breaking down. Okay, so we took Venezuela and we took all that oil right back. Yes, Venezuela, still geographically owns it, but all the oil revenue from Venezuela currently goes into an account that is owned by the United States, and then we divvy out like an allowance to Venezuela. So we control that oil, and Texas can refine that oil because that's what it was built to do before it was nationalized illegally by the Venezuelans. It's technically our infrastructure anyways. So what that did is that helped control the global oil price, right? It also did another thing. One of the main suppliers of China's oil was this mix of Iranian and the Venezuelan heavy sour. Okay, and they'd normally mix that at sea with shadow fleets, and then that's how China would get around sanctions. Plus, they're getting supplied by Russia. Well, when the strait closed, first when Venezuela came under our control, that was a huge blow to China. Okay, and then Venezuela, that was a huge blow to everyone. Not so much the Middle Eastern countries; they got their own oil, but to Europe, oh yeah. Okay, they get most of their oil from like Sweden, Norway, those areas. They could get it from Russia, but it's like taboo to get things from Russia up in Europe. So then what does Russia do? They're like, don't you worry, China. We got you covered. We got you covered. We're going to send you more oil. We're going to make more oil. But you see, here's another thing that people forgot about. Zelensky, who I don't like, and I'm all against the Ukraine war. Remember he went to the White House, they had the big shouting match. Well, did you notice, Trump seemed pretty mad. Mark Rubio seemed like he'd rather be somewhere else at that moment. But we never cut funding. And yes, I know it's, everyone talks about all the funding to Israel, the $3.8 billion. We're still giving $17.9 billion to Ukraine. I don't know why anyone's not complaining about that. But anyways, so Zelensky never lost money on that. Well, then something happened in the same month that we started bombing the Iranian nuclear infrastructure back in July of 2025. Zelensky shifted from military targets to oil infrastructure targets. What did that do? Well, that cut Russian oil production by 20%. And then flash forward, China loses like 40% of its oil once the strait closed. They had to rely more on Russia. But you see, Russia's got a problem because they're spending so much money trying to rebuild the infrastructure that Zelensky and his little army of Toy Story drones are taking out. He's really putting a hurting on their oil infrastructure. And so that forced Russia to tap into what's called the National Wealth Fund. That's like their social security. And there's a liquid portion of that they've been just draining. I think they're down like $44 billion. They've been draining that. Now, if that goes away, Russia's back to the days of shopping bags full of money, because they're going to go belly up and their economy is hurting right now. So basically what China's had to do is really curtail things like exports. They've really had to curtail a lot of their military maneuvers because that all takes fuel. And they can't really do much anyways because another move that we did was some of that Venezuelan oil that only we can refine. Well, there's one other country that can refine it. You know who that country is? India. So we started giving India a ton of that crude at a very discounted price. Would we get in return for that? Well, India, who, traditionally hates China, they agreed to pop a bunch of their navy out in the South China Sea, which further retards China's ability to really mess up Taiwan. Okay, so you see for all these people that say the Trump administration is stupid, they don't know what they're doing, then they're the luckiest people on earth making all the right chess moves, I guess by luck. Okay, I guess by luck. Because these were all brilliant moves. Okay? And when you get a chance, check out the ongoing negotiations just adjacent to Venezuela of Guyana. Oh, and by the way, if anyone was worried that Turkey might get involved because they've been rattling their saber about Israel, well, all of a sudden Turkey, you notice they're kind of like, kind of wanting to chill with Trump and hang out with him, and he's saying nice things about them like he does in any negotiation. But Turkey's become a lot less bellicose. Okay, well, you know what happened? See, back before Maduro, back before Iran, Marco Rubio, who honestly, I've got to make a video of Marco Rubio being like the Silver Surfer to Trump's Galactus, because I think it's the perfect match. If you want to know what's going to happen in geopolitics next week, don't follow Trump, follow Marco Rubio. So Rubio goes and he makes a deal with the Greeks. What is that deal? It's called, I think it's Operation Neptune's Trident or Poseidon's Trident. It's one of those. Naval exercises all throughout the Mediterranean, joint naval exercises. What's been happening nonstop is Turkey's been very aggressive in the Mediterranean because they want everything that's under the sea, from semi-precious minerals to fuel and oil. This being a big problem for Greece. Greece and Turkey, they've been pretty much having an arms race. And I've been kept abreast of this by my son, who's 15-year-old, half Greek. His mom's from Sparta. And, when I go over to, the ex-in-laws house, it's like the Greek C-SPAN over there. That's all I hear about is Turkey. So I didn't even have to research it. I get up-to-the-minute updates on this stuff. And I'd always I felt bad for my son because I'm thinking, well, no one's going to ever do anything about it. Well, little did I know, Trump saw it and he's like, let's make a deal with Greece, Operation Neptune's Trident, that will perform joint military exercises. And that will kind of keep Turkey from really doing much, because they can't really do much unless they go overland. There's another part of that deal with Greece as well. It's a deal to basically start building a pipeline from Greece to Ukraine. Okay, so, and then you see what's happening now in the Middle East. Oman and all the Gulf states, they're like 50% done with having started and building overland pipelines. So they're basically going, by the time we allow the Strait of Hormuz to open, it's not going to be as relevant to the world energy economy as it used to be. And, I think the Iranians have to know this. I mean, this is a race against time for them. We don't need their oil. if their oil infrastructure collapses, because you usually have, maybe 60 days once you shut the pumps down, I'm just guessing, but then they start breaking apart from the pressure not being released. They might dump it into the sea, which would be horrible, but who knows? But if they don't get things pumping soon, they got a couple problems. Their oil infrastructure is going to break down. It'll cost hundreds of billions of dollars to rebuild it, which they don't have because they get all their revenue from oil. Okay, and not only that, they got to pay their army, whatever remains of it. So everyone's worried about this on-land battle. No, there's not going to be troops on the ground. There doesn't need to be troops on the ground. Why do you think we primarily bomb the coast? It's just to basically keep everything shut. Okay, because right now we hold all the cards in the oil game around the world. Okay, and that's okay. It's okay to be the global hegemon. So back to my original point. So you got the multipolars. Then you got China. China's a unipolar. Okay, they have something called the China Dream, or the Chinese Dream 2049, where their stated goal is to be the global hegemon by 2049. They also have Made in China, I think 2025 or 2030, where they will be the key provider of manufactured goods for the world. They want to be all of it. So 2030, 2049, 2049 is the official 100-year anniversary of the Chinese Communist Party. It was actually formed in like the 20s. But point is, they've got their own plan. So sometimes you'll see things and you're like, man, I think that's China, but why are they caring about this? Well, it could be two influencers, like Chinese influencing towards mainly Belt and Road type stuff, or you're going to have multipolarists. They're going to be advocating for things like isolationism. They're going to be advocating for no new wars. Trump's a warmonger. They're going to be advocating for reduce the size of the military, reduce military spending. Well, see, that makes sense now, doesn't it? This is why the Massey crowd and the MTGs and all them, they're all multipolarists. They're all Duganites. That's what, same with Candace Owens, same with Tucker Carlson, same with Jeffrey Sachs. They all don't want the U.S. to have the ability to stay and remain the unipolar party of the world, because that goes against the multipolar vision of the world. That's why they're all against the same things. So that's why you're hearing this unison. So when you hear Global South or people that use imperialism and even the anti-Israel thing, a lot of that comes from the anti-imperialists. You notice during like COVID, you didn't hear a lot of anything going on with Israel. No one was that anti-Israel except for the usual suspects. But it was after October 7th, there was a severe spike. And the reason why is because Israel remains in the way of a couple things. Russia's dominance over the area and China's ability to keep their Belt and Road going through that area. Okay, those are the big things. That's why Israel has to go. How do you make Israel go? You turn Americans against Israel so they can, force the government to stop funding the $3.8 billion, which is weird again because $17 billion goes to Ukraine, $1.9 billion goes to Egypt. I think a similar amount goes to Ethiopia. But hey, the 3.8, that's going to rule the world. Okay, so that's what Israel is over there. And I spent a lot of time in that region. I'm not saying I'm smarter than you or anything, but this is like what I do. And it's what I've done since probably I was 16. But the thing about Israel to these ultranational powers, these strategic global powers, they don't see Israel as a Jewish thing. They don't see Israel as, oh, we can't have this Jewish state because the Muslims hate them. No, they see it as an extension of the United States. Okay, they see it as a bridge into the Middle East. So as long as Israel is there to the Russians, to the multipolarists, to China, they see it as America's there. That's the big thing. Now, we all know that we have bases in Saudi Arabia, we have bases in Jordan, we have bases in all the Gulf states, but people focus on that because there's no overlapping conflicts. See, if you start attacking Saudi Arabia, then they're going to get pissed at China and everything. So no, everyone leaves them alone because they have overlapping relationships, whereas Israel doesn't really. I mean, they do have cross-border trade with Jordan and everyone else, but, that said, And so that's why people attack them. And also what people will do in this country is they conflate Jews as all Jews. So they'll say this white nation in the middle of the Middle East, it's like, yeah, most Israelis are as brown as their neighbors, but that's why Israel comes into play. And you're going to find that most acutely with the multipolarists. So if you look at someone like, for instance, look at Elijah Schaffer. He's that red, I forgot the name of Rift TV, I think he was on. And, Elijah went from totally pro-Israel, then like 6 months after October 7th was totally anti-Israel. And everyone seemed to go at the same time. I've done some research on this. Everyone seemed to go at the same time. Most of this pivoting, except for people like Blumenthal, really happened after October 7th. Okay, and that's when Russia and the multipolarists really got overtly involved in the Middle East. And so that's where all this influence is coming. Am I saying those people are getting paid? I'm going to guess they are. Okay, there's plenty of companies out there to pay them, and the multipolarist interests like Russia, Iran, they can hire them, and I'm sure China will foot the bill. But that's, if you look at all this anti-Semitism, it started with the left, right? Like right after October 7th. They're out there with Jewish Voice for Peace, which you don't have to be Jewish to join, and most of them are Marxists, which is weird if they're religious. But the thing is, the left really started this kind of like, attacking Jews in colleges and everything like that. And then they just sat back and that was a China thing, right? But then all of a sudden that just literally stopped. And then all of a sudden the multipolarists or the far right extremists, they took over, and they're all the same people. I know you guys might be fans. My wife's been on a show, but I'm just going to name names because it's obvious. Alex Jones, Owen Schroyer, Tucker Carlson, Jeffrey Sachs, Ryan Matta, Elijah Schaffer, Kim Iverson, Jimmy Dore, that judge with the bad hair, I forgot his name. They're all saying the same thing. Just like look it up. It's just so obvious. MTG, Joe Kent, they're all saying the same thing. Okay, and it's Israel is bad, but it's not just that. It's that we're an imperialist state. Look for the word imperialist, favorite of the Duganites. And by the way, the Russians in this regard are not communists. Okay, totally not communists. They're more like ultra-nationalists. Okay, they actually look down on the woke and the left. The Russians hate that. And that's how they galvanize. That's why they target like the right. That's why they target the right so much, because they're like, we're the manly version of them. And you see a lot of people going for it. There's something called the American Communist Party, which was founded by Jackson Hinkle and Haz al-Din, who's a former DSA guy. They formed the American Communist Party, and then they took on the, name, they called themselves MAGA communism or MAGA communists. They're not MAGA. They're communists. Pretty sure Jackson Hinkle lives in Russia. But that's the thing. But what they're selling is, and they made it clear in several of the things I posted, they're like, no, we target the fringe right because we can sell them on the working class thing. We can sell them on the, hey, they think they're better than you thing. That's their goal. And it's an old game. Communists have done this forever. Okay. Or people like the ultra-nationalists. This is what they do. They're like, okay, find the part of the society that thinks the world's against them. And it was ripe for the picking, because what happened to the influencer network? Well, right after Trump's inauguration, all of a sudden that inner circle, Posobiec and Bannon and all these guys, they were the ones that were the voice box Benny Johnson for the president. And there were a lot of people, and you could go back and see their tweets and their Rumble posts and their rants, who felt like they should have been there. They should have been in the White House. Why them? And then the same old ball gets rolling. Oh, they must be deep state. Oh, they're working for the Israelis. Oh, this, that, the other thing. This happens all the time. Like, all of you that read history, I know a lot on this audience do, this is not the first time this has happened. Hell, Stalin did this to Czechoslovakia in 1948, when he basically had the democratic socialists take over the left-wing party, because he couldn't just take the country because the allies wouldn't have that. He was taking too much. So, he just infiltrated, he just flooded the country with a bunch of Stalinist groups. There was actually one called the Democratic Socialists. And they started these big, huge, protests against the nationalist president. He was like the Trump figure if Trump was weak. He was like that guy. And then what happened to the right or the conservatives? Well, that was easy. They just started spreading rumors that the Slovaks were working with the Nazis, and they're the problem. The Slovaks in Czechoslovakia are like the way Jews are treated on today's far right. Okay, that was the scapegoat. And so it kind of scuttled the right while the left was just taken over from the inside out. And then what happened? Well, they demanded elections. Someone got killed, and then that was it. And then the president could barely hold on to the country, so he went and committed suicide in the country, allegedly, and with 2 bullets. So this is an old game. It plays over and over again, and all those Jewish tropes you hear, that's old Tsarist propaganda. That's all like Elders of Zion stuff. It's been debunked so many times, but I still have people arguing with me about it. They're like, "Hey man, they're running everything," and I was like, just do the math. Like, what are there, like 14 million Jews? I'm not sure how they're going to rule the world. Maybe we should be more worried about China. Who lobbies more than any other foreign country, owns more of our politicians, land, and businesses in any foreign country, is actually taking over, is actually pumping water out of our Great Lakes by hundreds of thousands of gallons a day since 2014. Check it out. There's protests. Has sister city programs with, I don't know, Pittsburgh. You might know Pittsburgh. Oh, that's where Anthony, what's his face is. Talk about a brain freeze. The NIH guy. That's where his wife worked, doing those weird baby experiments. That's where Bing Liu disappeared, the Chinese scientist who's going to reveal the data modeling of the COVID virus. And then he mysteriously died in a love triangle murder-suicide by another guy named Sing Hao. Also from Wuhan, just showed up and said, "Oh, you're sleeping with my girl, bang, 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 bang." Yeah, I mean, these aren't conspiracy theories, these are facts. And that's the thing that is so frustrating for me, is just watching what's going on, like with this Tyler Robinson thing. Like, I'm not going to go too far into Candace because I'm going to do some coverage of this, but I gotta say, I'm kind of impressed. I'm thinking, how's she gonna pull anything out of this? And she does it. I know how she does it. She'll talk about the trial for a little bit. Well, this was said and this was said, and then she will lead to something else, and the whole show is about like Ben Shapiro or something. It's insane. But anyways, so multipolar, unipolar. So who's the new unipolar party? Well, that's us. See, they all thought Trump was heading towards that multipolar thing. He's soft on the Russians, so they thought, he's one of us. We're religious, they're religious. We're working class, they're working class. And Trump turned the tables even on Russia, and he said, "No, I don't think so. Now we're going to be in charge of this world because we are." And that's it. So right now, what you're seeing on the global scale is a war, not just between America and Iran, but Iran represents something bigger, and that is a key cornerstone of the multipolar strategy, or the fourth political theory, as Dugan calls it. And Iran is key, and the Strait of Hormuz is key, and we are making the Strait of Hormuz with our Gulf partners kind of like not matter pretty soon. Okay, these pipelines are set to be done by 2027. That's not too far. Okay, and that's good for us because then we can stop exporting oil and fill up our strategic reserves. But that's why the Russians are pulling their hair out. That's why these far-right so-called flat earthers and Max Blumenthal followers, Max Blumenthal, Gray Zone, son of Sidney Blumenthal, the guy who coined the phrase vast right-wing conspiracy, that Max Blumenthal. These people are all in on the multipolar shit. And that's why they're all losing their minds. And that's why they all sing with the same voice. See, they weren't that loud until Trump came back in office and started showing that, I'm not going that way. and they're losing their minds. Watch Jeffrey Sachs. Do a Google search. Do this. Do a Google search on Jeffrey Sachs, and so in quotes Jeffrey Sachs and multipolarity or multipolar. It's everything he talks about. Everything. Okay, so got Trump doing the unipolar thing. You got the tech bros, kind of like technocracy. They kind of want everything. They're kind of like China, except nebulous and weird. But they want to control a lot too. Then I had one more, but I forgot. They're all kind of the same, but you basically have two unipolar things going on. You got China and the U.S. trying to be the unipolar parties. And that's the real battle, guys, right there, is still between China and the U.S. It's not between Iran and the U.S., it's between China and the U.S. That's what this comes down to. Because look what happens if China can't get enough oil in, and they can't. Well, they can't produce enough natural gas because it's a byproduct of oil. Why do they need natural gas? How do you think they power their data centers to grow their AI capability? So the shutting down of the Strait of Hormuz really, really knocked China right off its trajectory. Beautifully, masterfully. And you should know that the Corpus Christi port, the busiest port in the United States for oil, has had a record year. And if you pull the Brent crude charts, you'll see them, they've been steadily going down. But, you know, if you're in a blue state, you should check the local taxes. They're usually $1 above the federal price. And in Oregon, California, and Seattle, I've been watching the local tax go up and start straying away from the federal tax. What's that mean? That means those states are adding additional taxes onto the gas, and they're blaming Trump on the high prices. It also keeps the national average up. So I'm not saying everything's connected and in sync, but I am saying everything has an effect on everything else. And a lot of people know this. So I would say this, fight tactically, okay? And, you know, fight the things in your neighborhood that affect you right now. They're trying to rezone your place to be a outdoor sauna or whatever. Just watch who's coming into your zoning boards. Watch who's taking them over. Watch what kind of things, you know, watch those local town hall things that you can go to. Because if you stay focused too much on the deep state or the surveillance state or anything, that's not something you can fight anyways. Okay. And that's not something, you know, you should be fighting. You should be fighting the thing that protects the danger closest to you first. Okay. You know, I'm looking at, you know, Bob here and, you know, these guys all kind of have a military feel, I'm guessing. And wait, Charles Manning. No way. Okay. But anyways, and they know, like, you know, if you're in the field when, you know, when we were in the field and something like that, like, and, you know, we all had to do guard positions, you know, even when I spent most of the time as military intelligence and special forces, but we'd have to do guard duty, you know. And do you think if someone rolled up on me, I was worried about the money that was behind getting him there? No, I'm worried about him. I'm going to shoot him. Okay, and it's the same thing with these things that affect you. Focus on those things, but, you know, keep your knowledge of what's going on in the wider world, but don't spend all your energy there because you need money, you need food, you need to make sure, you know, the DSA doesn't set up a headquarters, you know, in the house next to you, because that will take you out of the battle quicker than Bill Gates or the deep state. And so it's important to know these different, you know, influence centers, because then you kind of get a better understanding of why people are saying certain things. You could also get a better understanding of how to gauge the bias of the people who are talking to you and giving you news. And it's hard right now because you don't know who to trust. You know, don't trust me either. If I don't post a source, by all means, blow me up, figuratively. Okay. Spineless bureaucratic media hacks, just following the status quo narratives to support the psyops. Totally. Oh, totally. Love him. Yes. Tim, no, a 50-year-old doesn't know either. Get on Facebook. Tim, no, I don't. Okay, you guys having a sidebar here. I'm 52. I don't use Facebook though. Nope. Bingo. A poll from, and by the way, if you say something I don't put into context, just say it again and I will. Poll from Dallas Morning News came out asking how many people would vote for a socialist. It was hilarious watching people attempting to define socialism. Well, the socialists can't even define socialism. And technically, there's not even a real communist country in the world, a pure communist country. But yeah, it's, and, to be fair, it gets confusing because you have so many different kinds of communism. You have like Maoism, Trotskyism, Gramsciism, Stalinism, Leninism, Maoism, Xi Jinping thought with a dash of Mao. I mean, there's just so many. It's like American communism. It's, and that's why they never really are that successful, because if they do win a country, they all end up fighting anyways. And almost everyone on the left said yes, of course they did. Because, well, another thing too is that the Democratic Socialists have done this throughout history. They've been around for a long time. Not that particular group, which was actually formed at a communist meeting in Brazil. But throughout history, it's always been Democratic Socialists because they're the nice socialists. No, socialism isn't communism. Yes, it is. All socialism becomes communism once they get into power, because how can it not? If they become the government, then it's not powered by the people anymore. It's state controlled. You see what I mean? So it's, in my opinion, socialists who are very close to communists, it's like the minute they take power as a government, they are communists if they control the means of production and every other thing. So you're legit. Thanks, Bob. I appreciate that. But always, what we say about consultants, treat me like a consultant. I'm only as good as my last investigation. Just like your consultants are only as good as their last job. And that's what I tell everyone, challenge me. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. That's how we learn. But thank you. I appreciate it. But never blindly trust me or anyone. I'm sure you don't. What? I don't know what is about Bobcat. You and the emos, man. You're crazy with the emos. I love it. Exactly. Can only handle so much of Jen Hack Saki. Yeah, she's terrible. Z's girly man. Z is Zelensky. What's up with Yana? I was asked to go at the end of July for work, but cannot due to scheduling. Is it dangerous? No, it's not dangerous at all. If it's basically where, I don't know what we're doing down there, but that's also a big contested area for a lot of natural resources. And Marco Rubio has been all over that. It's definitely not dangerous, especially now since Venezuela, they popped Maduro out because all of our infrastructure's down there now. Exxon's down there and everything. And, when Exxon's down there, that means, special forces are down there and, the contractors. No, you're in good hands. And Guyana's kind of like, they're chill with us, so you'd be good. You should go if you can. Spot on. Yep. Definitely. So it wasn't just me. Judge with the bad hair. Okay, I can't remember his name. I always forget it because I can't stand him. He used to be on Fox. He's like Judging Freedom, I think his name. He's such a Dugan freaking throne sniffer. It's disgusting. Jesus is the truth. Okay. He came in his father's name, was rejected. The false Messiah will come in his own name and be received. Okay, thank you. U.S. loves Russia. Okay, here's my take on that. Russia loves Russia and the U.S. loves the U.S. Now, if I think, and let me be clear, Dugan doesn't speak for Putin. Putin, he's kind of like Trump. He's gonna have his close advisors, but ultimately he's gonna do what is most advantageous for him and secondary his country. Okay. I think we saw potential to work with Russia in the first Trump administration. And to be quite honest, Clinton was doing all right with Russia as well. Okay. You may recall back in the Clinton time, Putin was over there singing Blueberry Hill to a bunch of Hollywood elites. It's only when Trump started looking like a serious contender that the Clintons had to find a boogeyman, and why not go with the Russians? I hadn't messed with them since the 80s. Why not go with them? And the joke at the time was the Russians. who cares about the Russians? Like, and I think that was kind of like the hidden meaning of Burn After Reading, which is a great movie. All of a sudden, Russia's the bad guys, you know, to the Democrats, but it didn't really take a lot of, you know, it wasn't that sticky because they couldn't really sell it. And then they were selling it for two reasons: to try to get in front of Trump, but they're also doing it too because of their plans in 2014 with Ukraine, which we're just starting to reveal a lot of the way that that country has been ATM machine for a lot of corrupt people. But that's what happened. And 2014 is such a key time. That's when so much of this was set up that's happening to the world now. But yeah, so I hear you. U.S. loves Russian. I love Russian. I've been to Russia many times. But at the same time, we never forget. I don't think Trump does, because he really has never given them much of anything in negotiations. Yeah, Trump's very well aware, like, you know, that's, you know, they don't have U.S. interests in mind. Just like, you know, we don't have Russian interests in mind. And to dispel something, I got to get this out of the way. All this talk about the merger of the Israeli army and the American army is total BS. It's tech cooperation that's getting expanded and research. There's no merger. There's no shifting of like, we're going to be saluting an Israeli commander. This is just bullshit. American Spectator is the one that started that rumor. Just read the bill. You know, it's just like, I hear all these people losing their minds over this. It's like, no, because look, anyone that's been in the military for a significant amount of time, like more than a 4-year enlistment, who actually did something with their career or was in intelligence, and, you know, everyone knows, like, you know, we've worked with the Israelis for a long time. If you've done MFO over there in the Suez Canal, I did a tour on that. That's like the multi-force observers, you know, and, you know, like the UN kind of peacekeepers. We all like the Israelis, like in the American military, but, you know, we also know that they're for Israel. You know, they're not for us. We also know that if we show them something new, they're probably going to replicate that technology, and then kind of in that way IP steal that technology. I love Israel. I'm going actually to Israel next week, but it's Israel, you know, just like I really like I'm in a multifamily here. And so I have upstairs neighbors. I like my upstairs neighbors, but I'm always careful because we share common areas. So it's like multifamilies, there's them and there's me. So we own the building together. We have common areas like the basement. So I'm always very wary about like new ideas they might have to make sure I'm not losing square footage. Okay. Cause they have their interests. I have mine. There's nothing wrong with that. So we can love them, but they're not the US, and they can be our friends. But, you know, as we all know in the world of global geopolitics, the only friend you have is yourself, you know, and I think Trump's well aware of that. You know, all these people that say, oh, we're fighting a war for Israel. They just, honestly, they just cannot think strategically. They don't see the big picture, and they don't like to read, apparently, because none of that makes sense. Oh, and the people that think it's a genocide. I'm sorry, how many people are in Gaza? And it's a genocide? Haven't they been genociding the Gazans for like 4 decades? They're not done? Like, seriously? I mean, like, I'm sorry, people are just stupid. And it's stupid because they're letting their emotions rule their brain instead of their brain ruling their emotions. And that is the hallmark of amateurness in analysis. If you get emotional about a topic while you're analyzing it, you have no business being on it. Why do you think they don't let cops investigate a murder that they have a personal connection to? Because you can't think straight. Why do you think boxers glare at each other at the, you know, when they're weighing in? It's get the adrenaline going because you can't think straight. So if people are emotional, like there's people that are so emotional about Israelis, and some of them, my wife was actually on this podcast with this crazy village lady or whatever her name was long ago. My wife asked her, it's over on Daily Clout, you can check it out. It's funny. She's like, well, have you ever even met a Jew? She's like, well, I'm sure there's some in the county. I kid you not. Like, I'm like, what do you people, like, I don't even get that mad about China or Hamas. Like, I'm mad, but the emotions these people have for a group of people they probably don't know, or they know a bunch and they don't even know they're Jews. Like, it just blows my mind. Like, it blows my mind. I don't, maybe Bobcat seems he's on top of this because, like, what is that Bobcat? Like, where have you ever seen just this, the Jews, like this, I mean, it's worse than Trump derangement syndrome. It's, okay, it's equal to the way the left reacts to Trump is the way the far right flat earthers react to the Jews. Like, I'm like, really? Like, okay. I mean, call me crazy, but if I had to choose between my neighbor being a flat earther and Rabbi, Kashinkel or whatever his name is, I'm taking the rabbi because I know that dude's got his stuff tight. I know he's got a solid family life, and I know they're always eating and things are orderly and they're kind of very nice people. I don't know what this dude's going to do. Like, is he going to get a gun and shoot me if he thinks I'm the wrong race? I don't know. I never thought I'd say that in 2022 when we were all in this together, but like now people have just become dummies. And I'm sorry, but anyone who's a racist, you've got to be dumb. Any racists on earth, they tend to be I'm guessing they're on the lower IQ side because smart people aren't racist. They could be bigoted, but they're not racist. But these outright racists, like, look at the quality of most of them. Most of them are dumbasses or they're grifters. Seriously. Was that Dan Blazarian, rich guy who's dumb as a brick? Candace Owens, I'm sorry. She tries to mask, well, that girl just doesn't strike me as too smart. She's got some good marketing strategy behind her, but she kept, what'd she say the other day? 100, yeah, she kept saying 100 miles per an hour. I'm like, oh my God, she got to be doing this on purpose. So but most racists are dumb. I've never met a smart racist because racism, I think, is based on ignorance, so challenge me. If you know the genius racists, I'd like to meet them. Okay. Jeff Nutsacks. Yes. Yeah, he's a loser. And he doesn't Jeffrey Sachs kind of look like a soccer mom? I thought he was a girl the first time I saw him. Honestly, I thought it was like Elizabeth Warren's cousin. I did. I didn't realize I was a man. He's got like a soccer mom, like baby boomer soccer mom haircut. It's weird. And he has that same like soccer mom body like a Barack Obama does, so sorry, sir. I'm typing long before you can. Yeah, you're rolling. Yes, Judge Napolitano. God, that guy is doing crop rotation on his scalp. It drives me crazy. It's like the worst implants I've ever seen. And oh my gosh, he's so bad at the multipolar thing. Oh, and another guy too is that Colonel McGregor. What the hell happened to him? He's right on board. But really, go back to my episode when I talk about this, and you'll say, I mean, seriously, start making like some just diagrams. Just keep some notepad and say, okay, imperialist, I keep hearing that. And then just check the box when people start saying it. And then you'll see the networks. It's so easy. I'm not saying they're coordinated networks. I'm saying ideologically, there's groups going this way and there's groups going this way. Okay, and the other influencer network I forgot to tell you about, of course. So the left is the Soros camp, the globalist, borderless, open societies. That's the other big one. Okay, and Soros is acting at a very high level. That's where you're getting your DSA and your PSL, the Party for Socialism Liberation, many others. There's like 33 that operate. So Indivisible, No Kings, Burn the Teslas, whatever. Ruth Sent Us, Jane's Revenge. Like, these are all Soros-backed things. Why Soros? Because he makes way more money when countries are in chaos and borders are porous. Okay, so to summarize, unipolar China, unipolar Trump's America or MAGA America, multipolar Russian-led, Iranian-led, Syrian-led, formerly Venezuelan-led, okay, and then the tech. And so there's like 5 major spheres. I wrote it down somewhere, but I did a whole show on this. So why do I say that? I say that because too many people are thinking like us and them, us and them. It's us versus the communists. Well, it's not. It's us versus the communists, the multipolarists, the Chinese communists, okay, the Soros-backed Marxists, so there's more than one enemy. That's why things are so confusing. Well, that's the reason. because we're fighting on multiple fronts, and they're all coming in on America, and they're not working together either. Soros hates China. China hates Soros. Russia hates everyone, but pretends to like them. Iran definitely hates everyone. Maduro hates everyone too, but he's in jail, so it doesn't matter. He's in the same jail 2 miles from my house that Luigi Mangioni's in. What a crazy prison. It's like Alcatraz over there. It's literally 2 miles down the road, 1 mile from my daughter. Oil work. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Jenna. Oh, we've talked before. Yeah. Man, if you could go down there, you should. Definitely, because I'd love to find out what's going on down there, but you probably can tell me anyways. But, yeah, well, yeah, keep me posted. Shoot me an email if you change your mind on that one. Yeah, no problem. Hello, Richard. How you doing? What about the speech tonight? Yeah, man, I'm sorry I got off track. I think I'm going to cover the speech tomorrow, but what do you got? Let's see what you got. I support Israel, but what about the big speech? I know, man. I'm so sorry. Let's talk about the speech. Shut up. I wanted to. No one tells me to shut up. Okay. Where's Naomi? Who's this guy? Who is this guy? Okay. Bye-bye, China. Bobcat. All right. DMC grew. Judgment. Yeah, the hair crop rotation guy. Richard, I guess he's asking who Bobcat is. Richard's saying, Bobcat gives a smiley face. This is where identity politics has taken us. Ditto. Bobcat. Okay, good. We got to the end of it. Well, the speech tonight, actually, back to Richard, to answer your question. The biggest thing we took away from the speech tonight was the way the networks are reacting. So earlier on, I put on NBC, and they were like really having a meltdown. They were almost crying. Okay. And all of the networks that are closest working with China were the ones having the biggest meltdowns. Why did I bring up NBC? Because I previously put up from 2020 that I reported this, like NBC has been in MOCs with China's Xinhua, their ministry level PR propaganda machine, since 2010, when it was Steve Kappas leading that outfit. AP, same thing. Reuters, same thing. Business Insider, same thing. Actually, Business Insider was bought by Tencent. Okay. It's all the same thing. So most of the news, like all our major news wires and all the legacy news that is always like fronting for China and making sure China's not in the news cycle since Trump got inaugurated, you notice they disappeared. They're the ones flipping out because they're going to have some problems. Look at the revolving door of like CCTV and CCGN and CNN. It's insane. Okay. CNN, China. They just go back and forth. So yeah, that's kind of what we talked about as a reaction, but we're going to go more in depth tomorrow. And I do want to get Naomi on because she's got she's way better at dissecting politics and the momentum of them than I am. She's been in that for a lot longer. We always joke. I always say, well, we were in DC at the same time, and she was in the White House and around the White House. I was somewhere underneath the White House and all the other places. So, yeah. So there's that. So we didn't talk about it too much, Richard, but we will. We have another show called In the Lair, and we call our place up in Glenn will appreciate this. Our place up in Hudson Valley, we call it Liberty Lair. It's it's at the water line. Somehow we don't have a flooded basement. There's a lot of bugs, but we love it up there. It's like a bit of a swamp, but it's great. I love it. It's highly defensible too. It's a great place to go for the zombie apocalypse if the flat earthers get their way and we have one. Let me see. Did I cover? Oh, guys, do you have any more questions? I want to recommend again. It's tick season. I've got to say it. Get over to TWC and buy everything they have. So TWC is one of our main sponsors and the wellness company. Love this company. And they're doing a lot of really cool stuff right now with ivermectin and mebendazoles, where they've Harvey Risch, one of their chief epidemiologists and also former Yale Global epidemiologist, like God. Like, I love Harvey Risch. He started, they were doing a lot of this research, and they had these cancer patients taking ivermectin and mebendazole, and they, like, in some cases, their cancer went away. Now, this was observational data, not, scientific data, but they're doing more studies now with these combinations. Well, the wellness companies already started compounding these two drugs. And it's the only, I know there's a lot of online type pharmacies, but what I really like about the wellness company, they actually have real doctors. Now, there's another company, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of them. I'm not allowed to say their name. My wife will kill me. But, something about all family something. I forgot their name. You can go there. It's cheap and whatever. But you should probably know their doctor is under investigation for Medicare and TRICARE fraud again. You could go over to Consumer Diligence and see the deep due diligence someone did on that company. And the reason that I did, because I own Consumer Diligence, the reason we did that is because we were getting so many weird complaints from people about that other company. Well, that's what I like about the wellness company. You go to their site, real doctors, Dr. Drew is over there. So, I mean, like Dr. Harvey Risch, Peter McCullough. I mean, these are some of the best doctors in the world, literally. And these are the people prescribing to you, okay? And they know what's going on, and they're reachable. That's the nice thing. So I get their emergency medical kit. It's blue. It's got like tons of doxycycline. Glenn, you'll appreciate that. You're going to want that. I know you're up in tick country. And I get all that stuff, and I always keep it in my car with me at all times. But it's got things for, like, the things that you normally, like, you need, like, some antibiotics because you get a nail in your foot or something, or a tetanus shot. That you have to go to the doctor for. But let's say you guys, I'm sure you've had it. You get the splinter, you don't remove it on time, it becomes a big infection. Or, you cut your fingernail too close or whatever, you bite your fingernails, and it gets infected. And then you have to call your doctor, and then they give you a prescription. Then they give you like 5 pills. You really need like way more than that. Well, what I like about the wellness company, all these kits that they sell, everything they sell is like, comes in big quantities. It's made in America. That's important, because the other guys I was talking about, their ivermectin is made in China. Yeah. And in one of the dirtiest factories in China, according to the FDA, but that's another story. So go to the wellness company, and you're going to go to dailyclouthealth.com, use code dailyclout, and save $60 plus free shipping. And if you get the wellness company stuff, tell us all about it. I want to hear about it. I've had Peter Galuli on the show. He's the CEO of the wellness company. I really like that company. Plus, I really like all those people over there. They're just so cool. Like, they're, you know what you're getting. And I like that I know all of their doctors personally and most of their officers personally. And that's why I have no problem recommending the wellness company. These are friends of mine. But, always check them out, like I said, but you won't be sorry. Okay. And you know what you're putting in your body. These other guys, roll the dice. It's up to you, your body, your choice. But, I'm going to make the right choices for mine and the medicine I take. So go to dailyclouthealth.com and use code dailyclout. Get $60 off and free shipping. So there we go. And then we got one Patriot Deb. Welcome. We the young people better get much better about discerning what media is ours, our side, what's foreign and against us. Assume all media is against you. Assume it all. Okay? That's why I always say, like, start small. Start with the thing that affects you. Okay? Did your insurance rates go up? What does this electric vehicle charge on my electric bill? We got a plethora of problems here in Massachusetts. I got to deal with that. I got to look into, like, they're trying to, I don't even want to get the bills they're passing to give money away to illegals up here is insane. It's crazy. The good news is at the ground level, that's why I always say fight at the ground level, know your neighbors. Look, my upstairs neighbors, they're in the LGBT community, I'm guessing, based on their flag. My next door neighbor, he's old-time socialist, okay? I don't have anything in common with these people politically. But when someone tried to jam a multifamily into the lot across the street, which would have blocked all of the sunlight off the road, this whole community got together and said, not in our neighborhood. So the people don't worry so much about what their political leanings are. Here's the big difference in America today. This is what I think is the big dividing line. And this is what's going to give the DSA problems. Homeowners or renters. Okay, I'm not saying renters are bad. You know, my daughter's a renter. But what I am saying is homeowners, especially Gen X and older, we like our homes and no one's taking them from us. Okay. Renters, not so much. It's not their home. Okay. If you look at the DSA, most of their rhetoric is about landlords. It's the old Lenin playbook. Okay. So the big dividing line in this country, I don't think it's so much left and right anymore. I think it's like, I have a job and own a home. I don't have a job and don't own a home and can't get laid, and therefore I'm angry, so I'm going to take your stuff, or I'm going to try it with 15 of my buddies. That's, I think, the big dividing line is. People want us to think it's about left and right and all this, but really, look what's happening to the left right now. They're getting swallowed by the socialists, communists, and I think that's what it is. Like, these guys upstairs, they own the home, they don't rent. Okay, the people that came together in this community to block the evil developer, and he's not good. Everyone came together, and we all disagree. Like, it's almost comical how much we disagree. I'll go outside with my I'll do this on purpose, but I have like a million Trump hats. I've got, you know, I even have a baseball hat that says Israel first, which I love wearing to certain like people's houses that are like, oh, Israel's trying to take over. I'm like, no, they're not. And I got my hat. But anyways, I always Gino, I always get out there. He's a great guy. And I go out there and he's like, oh, I hate that hat. I'm like, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Were you speaking Chinese? You know, so that's how and that's what a good community is. Like, you know, we disagree politically, but when it comes to the community, we are all on the same side of the aisle. And I think that's the dividing line. And you should look for that in your own community if you haven't already. That will decide who's on which side. Are homeowners versus non-homeowners. That's what I believe. Or aspirational homeowners. That's what I believe. And that's why the DSA, they don't really get a lot of traction in Staten Island. They don't really get a lot of traction in Manhattan. They actually don't. They get their traction what they call the Communist Corridor, which is Bronx, Harlem, Brooklyn is the center, Queens, and Astoria. You know, those are their areas. They just don't do well. Like, they don't do that well in Massachusetts because there's a lot of homeowners here. A lot of people here own multifamilies, so they live in the home they rent. Okay, so they have a relationship with their tenants and vice versa. And that's the big thing. And that's, you know, in my opinion, politically, I wish, you know, honestly, I wish the Republicans get their heads out of their ass and learn how to interact with people, because they do a horrible job of it. Maybe they don't do a horrible job in the Midwest and Texas and Florida, but here, like, or like in New York, where we're friends with the guy who formed the Donald J. Trump Club, Jimmy Wagner. You know, there's no one on the ground. There's no one doing anything Republican. The young Republicans in New York turned Jimmy down when he asked for help trying to get, you know, council members elected that were Republicans and everything. Couldn't get any help from the Republican Party. Republicans, you know, they're next to get swallowed, just like the Democrats are, if they don't change their ground game, you know, plain and simple. Anyways, that's my rant on that. So let me see. My respect for your regular audience. Sorry, just barge in. Thank you for having me. Oh, yeah, anytime, John. Come on back if you're still there. Guyana has an extremely high crime rate, especially murder and violent crime. The State Department was warning the U.S. citizens against traveling there. Yeah, that might be the case. I mean, I don't know. You know, you got to do it. Yeah, I really don't know. I just know Marco Rubio spent a lot of attention on that one. So I will say it's probably safer than Chicago. Just saying. McCullough is I love McCullough. He's great. He's one of the most prolific, peer-reviewed doctors out there who's published. It's amazing. All right. He's a great guy. He's actually introduced and kind of helped my wife launch a few of her COVID books, and they've helped each other out. He's a great guy, and so is Dr. Drew. She was on Dr. Drew Day. I love Dr. Drew and Susan, good friends, good people, and Harvey Risch, man, he's awesome. That guy, he's like the smartest guy I know. He's like Goodwill Hunting with an MD. We had him over for Thanksgiving, and we had Jeffrey Tucker was over there too. And it was funny because Jeffrey Tucker's real great academic, great guy, and he's they're arguing about, I think, a Bach piece, and he's like, no, that's not true. Like, that's 6'8" meter, whatever. And, Jeffrey's like, oh, no, I'm pretty sure it's Bach, blah, blah, blah. And then Harvey says, no, I know this because I learned piano so I could learn how to play that song so I could understand what the meter was. I'm like, yeah, of course Harvey learned to play piano. And he does. And he's a great guy. And he's just everything. He's just like this genius. He just learns everything so quickly. My camera's freaking me out. I don't know if it's tracking me or what. All right. Wellness company is also the most expensive of the three. Yeah, you know what? You got one body, man. That's what I say. Go read. I'm not saying where to shop. You got to shop within your budget. I get it. But they might be the most expensive, and I don't think they're the most expensive, but I will say this. The one that I can't say the name, we actually did a secret shop on them. And so my journalist who did this, he basically said on the form that he had these allergies. They overnighted him the medicine that had he actually had those allergies, it was some the medicine he got, like if he really had those allergies that he said he had, this medicine would have killed him. They actually overnighted it. And he put those allergies on the form. So, it's up to you, Patriot Deb, but, I'd rather trust doctors that aren't licensed in all 55 states and have a office out of a industrial park somewhere in Michigan. That's just me. But, where you shop is where you shop. The wellness company just priced their products reasonably, then they wouldn't have to offer such huge discounts. Well, I think they're priced pretty reasonably compared to what that medicine costs. So, what I would do is here's what I would do if I were you. First of all, check out their product. They do have money back guarantees, and call them and say, hey, why do you guys price your products? I don't think they're that expensive, because if you look at the cost of doxycycline per pill, and you see how much you get in a emergency medical kit, which I think it's $299, but you literally get there's 7 different drugs and at a quantity of 50 to 75 pills. If you actually break that down, it's cheaper. Okay. But the thing is, when you're importing your drugs like the other guys do from, places I really don't trust drugs from ever since COVID, and you're using one doctor to write all your prescriptions who's not even checking, yeah, you're going to save a lot of overhead. That's how they do it. So when it comes to the medicine I'm putting in my body, yeah, I don't really want the cheapest. I don't want the cheapest price. If the highest quality is the cheapest price, sure. I want the real doctors who said that's okay to go in my body, because we can't figure that stuff out ourselves. So that's what I would do. Patriot Deb, and I hear you. It's tough times for everyone. Believe it or not, I'm kind of in a quandary right now. I hope more people, do a paid subscription on my Substack because things are getting tight, But the thing is, it's check them out, because in the long run, if you are prescribed the wrong thing, or someone is just writing off, prescriptions, which the other people seem to do without checking anything. That's been our experience that we have documented. The medical and health adverse effects of that will be far more expensive than paying for a slightly higher price for something that comes with expertise behind it. And that's what the wellness company gives you. And I've ordered a lot from them. And I've ordered from the other guys too, just to do the secret shopping. Is terrible. It's terrible. Like, I'm not even sure if they're sometimes real drugs. I don't know. Like, I actually want to have them tested. They're, but again, this is investigate everything. That means I don't investigate everything. You have to too. So if you find that I'm wrong, by all means, let me know, because that's what we depend on. But so far, I can't find anything that would keep me from shopping at the wellness company, and it's all been a great experience. Even I became friends with them because I was started as a customer, and I did the same thing. I called and said, "Hey, just out of curiosity, this is priced this way. How do you come to that price?" And they told me, like, well, this overhead, that overhead, these doctors, these insurances, this quality control is a big thing. You get what you pay for. Just remember that you get what you pay for. So, yeah. And if you call them, let me know how it goes. They're great, and I can even probably set up a call for you if you'd like. Anyways, but thanks, Deb. I appreciate it. First time home buyer, shares fall to historic lows, 21. Medium age rises. It must never be cheaper for a corporation to hire a guest worker from overseas than an American worker. Oh my God. He actually said that. Medium age must never be cheaper for a corporation to hire a guest worker. I don't have words. It's getting late. I gotta pop off here pretty soon. But let me see. According to recent Epoch Times article, California uses 80% of all federal government, that is U.S. taxpayers, on illegal aliens. Oh yeah. And by the way, if you keep a notebook, remember another term for illegal aliens is homeless. Okay. That's the game they're playing in New York City. The homeless crisis. I'm part of a group that actually is protesting against Mondami in Flatbush area because they're trying to dump a ton of homeless shelters into the central Brooklyn area, but they closed all the prime real estate ones in Manhattan. So it's interesting because the people I'm helping, or, I'm kind of just filming and getting footage. I'm going to do a show on it. And they've done some really great research. These are really pretty kick-ass people. The only problem I have is that I'm telling them, I'm like, hey guys, don't you find it odd that Mondami's putting all these down here? The one contractor for all of them happens to know him, and they're building brand new apartments behind all the homeless shelters that are remaining vacant. Don't you find that odd? They're like, well, I don't think it's like, they don't want to believe this guy could do something bad. They're treating it like he's just hasn't thought it through. And I'm like, no, this guy is an evil POS. So they're getting there. They're starting to realize it. But it's, a lot of these people have known nothing but the Democrat propaganda. And I'm introducing very gently, topics that they've never even thought about, like communist China's not our friend. Like, seriously, like most people in the city, they either don't get news or they get their news from the New York Times, occasionally the Post. But see, the New York Post is usually sold out, so the New York Times is the only thing left. But in most parts of like Brooklyn, it's hard to even find a newspaper these days. Seriously, that's not like Democrat controlled. Like everything is like, Black Democrat voice or voice of less than, darker shades of than white Democrat paper. Like literally, I'll take a picture next time I'm there. I'm like, hey, can I just get like a New York Post or Boston Herald or something like that? No, they don't have it. You get the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, but you can't get anything else. Everything else is like local, weird. The DSA even has a paper. They even have newsstands. Like, it's insane. You can't get like something close to the center even. So, but yeah, One Patriot Deb. Most people don't even realize it. I'm like, homeless are illegal aliens. And that's same thing in California. That's why they're, so big on the homeless. Oh, and by the way, do you know that Mayor Bass in 2000, I want to say like 2 years before her wildfires, she actually was trying to get zoned for these 1,400 housing units for the homeless. Okay. And they got turned down. Why'd they get turned down? Well, they were too close to single family homes. That's the zoning. Well, the place she was looking at was literally the epicenter of the fire, Brentwood. Okay. Guess what she wrote into the relief money for the California wildfires? Her 1,400 units. And she's getting them. I'm not saying she started the fire. I am saying she didn't hurry to put it out. And another fun fact, I know you regulars have heard this one. Did you know, and this is true, that right before Carolyn Bass landed in Ghana, not Guyana, Ghana, one of the reasons she may have been going over there is because for used garments, LA and Ghana are trading partners. So like LA is the biggest exporter of used garments to Ghana. All right. It's a weird thing, and Ghana has one of the biggest used garment like markets in the world. Okay. You could guess where California gets their supply to export. Well, get those from illegals. Why do you think they have those piles of clothes everywhere? Everyone's like, oh, the illegals just dumping their clothes. Well, yeah, and then LA is going to sell them, make money. Right before she landed in Ghana, a mysterious fire burnt the entire market down. I'm not even joking you. Before she landed in Ghana, possibly to negotiate trade negotiations for used garments, the largest used garments district in the world, which happens to be in Ghana, mysteriously burnt to the ground. Well, there goes their supply. So I'm sure she had pretty good negotiations. Maybe this chick is a pyro. I don't know, but I think that's pretty strange. All right. Love Pete. Peter McCullough is awesome. Definitely. Bob Vittles, by the way, Bob, welcome. The media is like church was in the days of Catholics, would kill Protestants and anyone else they didn't like. Well, to be fair, I think the Protestants killed people too. Like I'm Irish Catholic, so it's like, yeah, I think every church kind of abused their power at some point for sure. Except for the Muslims, they were very fair. They would just kill everyone if they didn't revert. No, it's a troll after my. That's funny. Really love you and your show, and your wife too. Big fan of Dr. Drew and his show. Admire and respect McCullough et al. Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. I love on Dr. Drew's show, his wife Susan. There's always that commentary coming in, and I've been on there a few times. I'm always trying not to laugh. Those two are hilarious. Maybe they're being paid to do a poor job. I want to put in the DNC to do that. That's the DNC CCP to do that. Yeah, maybe, but maybe they're just dumb. I mean, humans do human things, you know what I mean? I don't think everything's planned. I think some people are just dumb, and look, we've all met a few dumb politicians, I'm sure. They're just dumb. Like, not all of them, but there's some real dumb ones out there on both sides of the aisle. Like, they're like, okay, they have that vacant thing where they shake your hand. Like, yeah, all right. That sounds interesting. No, seriously, your car's on fire. Okay, we'll get on that. I'm like, oh my God. All right. Hey, Brian, great to see you. Blue Wolf 2000, the original Blue Wolf. Blue Wolf is one of the original watchers. I appreciate him being here. Great to see you live, and hope you and Naomi have been well. Keep reading the small one. I could just read the big one on the screen. My friend, it's gotten really tough to keep up with you live, but I know you have a lot going on. Yes, it has been, and I'm sorry. And it's not going to get any easier, but what I am trying to do, one show a week, no matter what. And yeah, I just it's not even like a commitment thing. I just set everything else up myself. I do all my own research. I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying, you guys ever do that research thing? Like, if you hunter your fish Like, I love hunting, and I love fishing. I can sit there all day and fish and catch fish. I don't hunt big game, but I like bird hunting and, small game hunting. But when I kill something, I don't really like, cleaning it and cooking it and all that. I just like hunting it. I just like fishing for it. And it's the same thing with like research. I love researching. I do. But when I get to sit down and write it and turn it into a show, it's really tough for me to get off the hunting mode and into the cooking mode. And so setting up the show is like the cooking mode, and I'm just kind of training myself to do it more. Now, the good news is I've completely sworn off alcohol for the summertime, believe it or not, just because it's time to lose some weight and, had some high blood sugar, so I got to be careful there. But my creativity's gone through the roof, and so has my energy to get things done. So you're going to see a lot more of me, but I am shooting for, here's what I'm shooting for. I am shooting for probably Wednesdays and Fridays is what I'm shooting for. Okay. Either Wednesdays and eventually Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But what I really want to do, and I wanted to ask your guys' opinion on this, it'd be great to do a Saturday show. And I'll tell you why, or even a Sunday afternoon show, but Saturday is probably better. Because there's not anything else going on conservative channels. I mean, you'll get like one thing of War Room maybe, but like, afternoon, like there's nothing going on and you're just hungry. And I would love to go on there and just do the news all day, like from noon to like 3, and because there's no one else doing it. So I'll probably do, I'd say Monday, Wednesday, Saturday maybe, but I'm trying to get Naomi to do a show with me on Saturday, but she's always is full of energy and wants to go out and do something. So we bought a fold-up kayak, so we're going to take that sucker out in the morning. But anyways, point being, I do have help now, so I've got a lot of stuff in the hopper, a lot of research done already, transferring it to shows. My next show is going to be really cool. And by the way, guys, here's your homework, and I'm going to get going soon. Give me a thumbs up if you want to see a preview of my next show, and I will show it to you. Okay? You're going to love this. And don't scoop me, anyone, please. But I'm going to give you a preview right now because it's a pretty cool video I made. But your homework is, if you haven't seen the movie or you haven't read the book, King Rat by James Clavell. He wrote Shogun, Taipei, all these great books. Read King Rat. I've likened the entire Candace network, or people like her, to King Rat. So I won't go into it, but in a nutshell, King Rat, he's a POW, he's a corporal, known as the King, in a Singapore, I think, prison right after World War II. And he has tons of power. He's the king because he has this black market. He can get anything. And you have this Gettr type character who's a English officer who's kind of like in charge of the prisoners, even though he's a prisoner. He hates King Rat because King Rat has all the power. And King Rat's, he's a survivor. I want to call him a good guy. He does wield a lot of power, but he's a survivor. But it's in the POW camp that he has the power. And when liberation comes, he's nothing. So I kind of liken the entire POW camp as like the camp of lies, the camp of like the conspiracy theories in this case around Charlie Kirk's assassination. Well, these are false narratives. They're clearly false narratives. They're not presented by the defense even as possible evidence in the pretrial. So eventually, like what happened to so many people, it's like they're really big in this microcosm of flat earthers and this. But the thing is about lies, it's like you got to keep building on them like Ponzi schemes, and you got to keep feeding your people. And lies they can be more interesting than the truth. And her people are hungry. They want more and more and more. So I think I captured what's going on there. I've done a lot of research. I broke out the old psychology books. I'm not a psychologist. I got some in my family. I did do criminology and criminal justice for my grad school and my master's. And I studied a lot of mass psychology in the work I was doing for the government for obvious reasons. So, oh, no, don't worry, man. So yeah, I'm going to show you the preview and then we're going to call it a night. But, and then, Richard, sorry, we'll talk about the speech tomorrow, I promise. Naomi, and you do great work. Life happens. Yes. And JD Chantel, you do great work too. I wish I could get more involved in the work you're doing. I just don't have enough time because I'm so involved in the ground game, but you're on the sky game and everyone should follow him. Pop your, cause we can't see it there, JD Chantel, pop your actual, Twitter address so people can follow you. He's doing amazing work with, what you're seeing in the skies and what's going on up there. And he's interacted with Naomi a lot. They've been doing some great work on this and they're getting some traction. I mean, these are not conspiracy theories, what's going on up there. There's something really gross and disgusting going on in our skies. And JD Chantel has a lot of the receipts. So if you put the full thing up there, because we can't see your address right now. Maybe no, we can't. So, and then Blue Wolf said, oh no, don't worry about it. The comment was not busting your chops. I just missed it. Oh, I know you weren't busting my chops. Didn't think you were at all. But I'm more kicking myself because I really, really enjoy sharing the stuff I research with you guys. That's why I do this show. And, the show is on my wife's platform. So, suffice it to say, I'm not a volunteer, but like, I do this simply because, not for her, I do it for you guys. And you guys are my interlocutors. Used to be Naomi, but once she called Biden a fascist, she was on every podcast known to man, and I lost my interlocutor. So you guys are my interlocutor, and that's why I do the show, and this is exactly what I want. That's why I even invite a lot of you guys to come on the show, because I want some more back and forth here. But it helps me from going crazy because I put so much in this noggin of mine that sometimes it's for a client, so I get to share that with you, and with the client's permission, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes I just go down that trail and you can't stop, and you got to get it out of your head, either in written form or presentation form, both in my case. So, of course they did. I'm not defending religions. Oh yeah, no, you could defend religion. I'm just, we're good. I don't think, I didn't think, and I don't want you to think I was attacking yours. I'm just saying the media is like its own. Yeah. I think the media is more like a cult now, though. Like, I agree with you. But, like, with this new independent media, I was very, very optimistic about it. The problem is, there's no... Look, what we've noticed, my wife and I, about legacy media versus this new kind of independent media. One thing legacy media does do well is their community understands things like reciprocity and kind of raising each other up, even though they're, all communist propaganda, but they all raise each other up. Okay. They make sure the stories are shared and amplified. They're a machine. Problem with the independent media that I'm seeing is there's no reciprocity. She's had so many people. I've had so many people. Hey, come do this thing. Come do this thing. And then, they scoff when you say, can you pick me up in the Uber that you're already in or something, or like they want you to come on all the time. And then when you need one of their guests or something, they don't even answer the phone. So that's what independent media has to do better is be a team. Okay. Not in a communist sense, but like, all ships rise with the tide. Otherwise, they're eventually going to get decimated. And then when you have that kind of community, you kind of police your own. See, right now, independent media is a bunch of different people all running to get the scraps of whatever some of the bigger rats leave behind. Okay. If you're following trends. Okay. If you're coming up with your own content like I do, you're not going to grow your audience quite as fast, but you're putting out good content and you're creating a solid base. And that's way more important to me. But the people that are just chasing the next shiny thing, they're all going to eat each other. Okay, they're all going to eat each other. And so let's do this preview. I think you're going to like it. I'll probably have to do this either tomorrow or on Saturday. I just don't know if my 15-year-old is coming in the morning or not because he's terrible at answering his phone. But If he's with me tomorrow night, then I usually take that time for him. Going to take him to go see Young Washington. And but if he's not, then I'm definitely going to do a show, probably in the afternoon, so it's not so late. But I'm going to give you a preview of it right now. Thanks, JD. I appreciate it. No, you guys are awesome. You're all awesome. This is what we need right here. More of this, and we'll get the call-in thing going as soon as we make it happen. So, anyways, we have another sponsor. I'm just going to throw that banner up. That's Augusta Gold. Okay. And you could go to dailyclout.com or text Clout to 35052 and request Augusta's free information kit. One of the other very good gold companies. I like gold. It's gone up insane in the last 5-6 years. I think it's leveling off now, but it's still a great investment because it's not going down, and it doesn't go down. It'll go down from highs, but doesn't go down, to I think it's like over 4,000 an ounce now. It was like 1,300 an ounce like back in 2021. Huge investment. And it's a good, you got to have some precious metals in your portfolio. What I like about Augusta Gold is very transparent. They answer the phone. You know where everything is. They're not trying to sell you any minted coins or any of that type of stuff. I'm sure they offer them, but it's pretty transparent. It's kind of like your bare bones. Come buy gold. That's it. I love Augusta Gold, and they're solid. They got all their certifications. I've talked to these guys a lot on the phone just because I was going to do a show on Ghana's gold, and because that's actually the biggest producer of gold in Africa. Who knew? And I actually had one of them on the phone for like 3 hours, and I was like, dude, I'm going to get you fired. Don't you have to? He's like, yeah, I got to go. This is really interesting. But yeah, check out Augusta Gold. Definitely get the information kit. Tell them Investigate Everything sent you. That's not a code. I'm just saying that, And you want to go to dailycloutgold.com or text Clout to 35052. You're going to get the free information kit, and you're not going to get spammed. You're not going to get email spammed, not going to get text spammed. Great company. Check them out. Great sponsor. All right. Well, without much further ado, remember tonight's speech, election integrity is everything. Donald Trump is right. Watch the media tomorrow. They're going to be flipping out, and they're going to go one of two directions. A, they're not going to talk about it. They're going to say, well, they're going to redirect you away from China. Or B, they're going to try to distance themselves from China. Now, ready? What do you think Candace Owens is going to do? Whose fault is it really going to be? Any guesses? Any guesses? It won't be China's fault, right? You know whose fault it's going to be. Guarantee it. And it'll be, let me see, Tucker. But would it rhymes with Israel? What do you think they're going to say? Yeah, it won't be China. Guarantee it. Or Candace will somehow connect China to the Utah assassination. Who knows? Who knows? But there's that. And so we're going to talk more about that. We will, even though I have to hop on for like a half an hour tomorrow, want to talk about the speech, but I'm also waiting to see what comes out of it. Today, I think, was just kind of like a preview. I think there should be more coming. I was expecting a longer speech and more detail, but we'll see what happens. But I think now is a good time for you guys to pull all your stuff from that era and, get your notes ready and start writing some Substacks on this. And by the way, if you write a Substack on any topic I'm covering or planning on covering, make sure you shoot me a note. You could go to brian@dailyclout.io. I will restack it. And if it's, you do a good job on it with your sources, that's what I care about the most in making your points. If you don't mind, I'll use it as a source as well, probably on my show, because that helps me. I can't investigate everything myself. I need you guys to help me investigate everything. And that's a good place to stop. But let me, while I'm rambling on, I just want to call this up. I'm going to give you a preview here. Let me find it. Oh, yeah. So many videos. All right, so I want to go to, sorry, I'm just talking my way through my, all right. Okay. Okay, here we go. Very excited. Right, so
in the brutal
before this starts, and by the way, I wrote this script. This is all based on my research and my essay that's publishing tomorrow. And I did use a combination of a couple AIs to make this, so pretty proud of this one. Definitely read King Rat by James Clavell. On that one, Everyone, thanks for sticking with me. Wow, that's the most live viewers I've had in a long time. But this is a preview for my next show. It's coming up, and not today, but soon, tomorrow or Saturday. You're going to love it. There's a lot of interesting stuff. Here is a teaser for you, and with that, I'm going to give you a good night. Hold on, let me move that. You know what? I'll just keep myself on the screen here too, because I want to watch it. I'm proud of my work. Is that the right one? Just want to make sure you're getting the whole screen. Yeah, there we go. God, I need a producer. There it is. Okay, that'll work. All right, you guys ready? Here we go. This is the cold open for my show. You are getting a sneak preview right now. Enjoy.
In the brutal confines of a Japanese POW camp during World War II, James Clavell's King Rat exposes the raw mechanics of survival, illusion, and power. The king builds a thriving black market empire. Through a personal human intelligence network of guards and inmates, he creates an ecosystem where he controls resources and perception.
There's enough.
He elevates loyal followers to higher ranks in his shadow hierarchy, granting privileges that reinforce their dependence.
You've earned this. Stay loyal.
His power thrives only because the camp
Prove it
remains
daily.
isolated,
Please, sir.
a closed system cut off from the outside world. Just as the king transforms from a lowly corporal into a camp overlord within his isolated domain. In today's modern information age where social media dominates the narrative, figures like Candace Owens operate as shapeshifters in the information bubble, where followers lap up every word of promised revelation. Like King Rat's followers, she elevates lowly podcasters to prominence to buttress her false narratives. Like King Rat feeding food, Candace feeds easily digestible false narratives to a desperate crowd starving for meaning. Candace controls the narrative like King Rat controlled resources. Both decide who gets special privileges, both keep facts hidden to hold on to power. And both are vulnerable to a time when the real world comes crashing in.
Okay, that is your preview on my next episode. And the episode title is, be on the lookout for it. I will announce it on X. Okay, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. A lot of work has gone to it. Let me find in my many sticky notes here. Here we go. Yeah, so this will be the next episode of Investigate Everything. It's called Candace, Conspirators and the Dangers to American Unity, Part 1 of the King Rat Influence Network. Okay. In this hard-hitting episode of Investigate Everything, host Brian O'Shea draws on James Clavell's classic King Rat to expose the modern rat network, a loose ecosystem of influence who thrive by breeding fear, division, and cynicism in the information trenches of today's America. Using the World War II POW camp as a powerful metaphor, O'Shea illustrates how certain voices, once aligned with America First principles, have shifted toward reflexive isolationism, anti-unipolarity rhetoric, and relentless conspiracy amplification that ultimately weakens national cohesion and strategic resolve. The episode opens with a dramatic montage framing the issue. You just saw that. Then focuses on Candace Owens' recent content in the wake of the Tyler Robinson pretrial developments as a key case study. O'Shea examines how fear-based narratives, whether monetized for engagement or driven by deeper ideological shifts, erode trust in institutions, fracture alliances, and condition audiences for paralysis at a time when American strength and unity are most needed. Drawing from my intelligence background and current investigative journalism work, I distinguish legitimate scrutiny from the parasitic quote-unquote black market of half-truths and perpetual outrage that profits from national anxiety. This multi-part series on Investigate Everything maps broader network dynamics, highlights risks to long-term survival in great power competition, and calls for rigorous source-driven investigation over reflexive demoralization. The intended takeaway: true patriotism builds rather than scavenges, and unity is not optional. It is essential for our national survival. Join me on that next episode of Investigate Everything. Everyone have a good night. Thank you so much. Love you guys. And I will see you next time. Take care and have a great night. Enjoy your weekend and get out in that sun. Okay, get out there and enjoy it, because what's worth fighting for that you can enjoy from time to time. Have a great night.